I'm ready.
All right. Good evening, everybody. How are you doing this evening? Good. It's a big night. A lot of kids here. All right. The date is Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. The time is now 6 p.m. and the city of Williston City Council meeting has come to order. Ms. Wright, would you call roll, please?
Mayor Goodman,
I am here.
Council President Cox,
Here.
Vice President Hines,
Here.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
Councilmember Martin,
Here.
Councilmember Riccio, she will be late, City Manager Sue Bodette, Attorney Kirsten Ballou,
Here.
City Clerk Latricia Wright, I am here, and all other staff. Thank you.
All right. We're going to do opening prayer to pledge allegiance to the flag. Mr. Charles Goodman, the mayor.
If I fall, it's for Old Glory. Lord, I just come to you tonight. Lord, I ask you to lift up all the people in this meeting. Lord, I ask you to be with the council as they make decisions that mean a great deal to each of our citizens. Lord, give them the wisdom to make the city's right choice. Lord, you have given them the ability, you've given them the time, and I know, Lord, they will do as you would have them do. And I ask you to bring each person here tonight when they leave, to bring them home safe. And Lord, I would like to place a special hedge of prayer over our police officers. Lord, you can see it. Every week, hundreds of police officers get killed in random situations that the rest of us are not exposed to. So I ask you to put a special hedge of protection and prayer around the police officers in the city of Williston. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
All righty, thank you. Item 1, addition, deletion, changes, and approval of the agenda.
Mr. President, I have an addition to the agenda. Oh, sorry. I'm not used to that. Sorry. It is Resolution 2025-38. This is the signing of the contract with Performance Services for the Fiber ISP, and that would go under item J, so item K on the agenda.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, I'll take a motion.
I move approval of the agenda with those changes.
Can you get a second?
I second.
All right, any discussion? All right, seeing none, we're going to move to vote at this time. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. All right, item 2 is the Mayor Student of the Month. It's one of our favorite times of the month. Mr. Mayor.
I want you all to know that I am not a salesman, but have you ever seen these hey dudes?
I look pretty good, Mr.
Huh? I just found them, okay? Sheesh. I don't want to hear it.
Do you need a chair?
I don't want to hear it. That blinking light in the corner of your eye?
Secrets. Uh-oh. My question is, do you need a chair?
We had a little law enforcement council. What? You hold on to them. Okay? We okay now? We can move forward. Okay. Debony. Where is that young lady in the beautiful black dress?
I love your name, by the way. Cool.
Now you got to help me with something here.
She knows to mom and dad.
How did you get to spell your name with an H? Yeah, well, I'm talking about your mom and your dad.
I mean, I don't know.
You don't know? You weren't there? Okay. Well, let me tell you something, Debony. Mrs. Ketchum. There we go. Mrs. McGowan. Did I pronounce that right? And your last name is Ortiz. Ortiz. Debahani Ortiz. The world is changing. Okay. But Mrs. McGowan knows you well, she says. She says, Dabney is very reliable. I can see that. Consistent and helpful and friendly and a good student. Dabney tries very hard and she is respectful to all. I second this, Miss Santiro. Dabney is a great student, respectful and kind to her peers. It is a pleasure to have Dabney in our class. I think that's a wonderful tribute to you. Would you give Dabney a So, Dabney, we need to conference for a minute.
Yeah, that's not her.
Of course she knows. Miley Riza.
He's name challenged sometimes.
Miley. Mila. Hi, Mila. I'm Charles. What is your last name, Mila? I can read it, but I'd rather hear it. Lisa. Pleased to meet you. Where were you sitting? I thought she was one of your children.
She is.
Oh, she is.
We're just extended. We have to extend.
Oh, my word. Okay. Never ask a question unless you know what the answer is. So, Miley.
Mila.
It's not that funny. Mila. Welcome to the council chambers of the city of Williston, where everybody in that audience, all those people around me and everything are staring at you, and that man back there's got a picture going of you to send out to all of the world. Okay.
On
Now,
you.
both of us know.
Yeah, on YouTube, in case you want to watch.
Mrs. McGowan, again, who made the following comment. Mila is, did I get it right? Mila is always going above and beyond. She will work with whatever group she is put with. Not all of us can do that. Miley. See that blinking red light in the corner of your eye? A rare dissipation light. Mila is always going above and beyond. She will work with whatever group she is part of, has good grades, and is never negative. Having Miley in my class is one of the best things I have this year.
Yeah, Mila.
So first of all, since Mila, Jesus said first will be last. So Mila, this is a presentation of Outstanding Student Award and presented to you by me, Charles Goodman, the mayor. And this is awarded to certify for academic excellence, leadership, citizenship, and attendance. You actually went to school all the time. Devaney. I like her. She's got an easy name. Devaney, we'd like to present you this outstanding student award presented by Charles Goodman, me, the mayor of the city of Williston, Florida. And this is to certify that Devaney Ortiz is awarded the certificate for academic excellence, leadership, citizenship, and attendance. Are you two in the same grade? Are you in the same class? You got exactly the same word.
That's because what's
You
what our,
don't suppose
that's what our
that-
certificate
I see
says.
that last thing? AI. They had an AI program like this. May I give you this? Show the awards to everybody there, please.
Oh my God.
Anybody wants to make it now? Is the time. Because this is the time I get to ask one question that I always love to ask. Do you like pizza? Do you like pizza? One day I am going to find a child that says, no, you can't take pizza. One day I'm waiting for it. It would show, you know what it would be? It would be an act of supreme self-sacrifice.
Except it's Shogun, not pizza.
What did I say? Shogun? Shogun's doesn't have pizza.
Here we go. That's
Did you know that?
Bailey, Miley, it's Lisa, and don't worry about it, Vera. Just keep going.
Okay, get together and take you.
oh my lord.
Now hide behind. Thank you, ladies.
I wanted to run for it.
All right. You all are welcome to stay for the meeting, which might end about 10. Who knows? Or you can make a run for it if you'd like. Thank you all for coming.
Those are good babies.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a baby in there. Bye.
Y'all have a good evening. Yes. All right. Item 3 is public participation. This is your first of 2 opportunities to address the council. At this time, anybody in the audience can come to the podium and speak for 5 minutes on any topic other than what is on the agenda. Anybody come up, want to speak?
Jackie over there.
All right, just to let you know that the council does not have to reply to you, okay? The council doesn't have to reply because it's a public thing. Welcome, please state your name and where you're from, please.
Good evening, Jacqueline Appling. I'm back, so it's good to be back. Good to see everyone. I just have a few things that really asking for updates. For those of you that were here for the past weekend, the parade and the Quinion Mitchell event that they had was awesome. And I said it had to be with everyone and their help to make that happen. So I'm here to ask for an update on the Kenese William Park. That event was there. I'm just trying to get back on board. I've been out for a while. Just get an update on the park as to where we are. Because softball season is coming, it's starting. And we would like to get the field cleaned out there so that we're able to have some games out there. I've asked for permission already. We have the equipment ready to go in. We just have to have the gate unlocked and be able to get in with my dad's equipment in order to clear the softball field. So that's the field we're looking at trying to get clean and ready for softball, which will be starting probably within a month or so. But then, yeah, some schools have started or some places have started already. So we would like to get out there. We have volunteers that want to help. We have students that need volunteer hours. So we're hoping to be able to utilize that. So that's one update. The next update will be just the speed. I've talked with a couple people about the speed concern out near the laundromat across the railroad track. And I have a couple people working with me on that. So I'm hoping that I can get an update on the speed concern that's out near the laundromat. And I think those are the two areas that I'm just trying to get some updates from anyone that could give me an update on those two areas.
Mr. Bishop?
As far as the gate, as soon as you tell me you're ready to go out there, we'll make sure the gate's open, not a problem. As far as the speed, I'm still talking with the state and Joe Wayne over at the school board, and we're moving forward, but we don't have no resolutions at this time. But we're still working on it.
Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I can give an update on the Cornelius Williams Park improvements. We do have to go to the county and ask for a zoning change so that we are allowed to do the use. Right now, we're not allowed to be doing what we're doing out there, so we're going to ask for a zoning change. It's going to take a couple months, but it's not going to stop anything. We have Walt, I think he's almost ready to bid out the project for moving dirt. And then we also have that second grant that we got for the gazebo, so we'll be putting that out for, a pavilion. So we'll be putting that out to bid probably in the next 2 months or so. So there's plenty of time to play softball. I'm trying to keep Latricia up to date on when it may not be a great time to be out there anymore, but softball should be able to go. Am I right, Walt? Softball's good. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Police Chief Rose?
As far as the speeding go in that area, if you've been in that area lately, I have a sign out there that says slow down 35 miles an hour.
Okay.
And I've also staged a police vehicle out there to slow people down when they enter the city of Williston.
Okay.
That's my first warning. My second warning would be a ticket.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you to everyone for those updates.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome back.
So Laura, you said that you had to go to the council and do some rezoning because we were doing things out there we weren't supposed to.
Yeah, the use
Can you
out there.
elaborate on that?
Yes, ma'am. The use out there, the zoning isn't proper for the county. It's in the county, remember? So the zoning isn't proper for the use, and since we're going to be asking for permits and stuff, it's time for us to go ahead and fix that. So for recreation, it's not the proper zoning. I believe it's commercial zoning. Walt will talk.
Please state your name and where you're from, sir.
Walt Mickle with Wright Pierce, the
Thank you,
engineers. The zoning there is industrial.
Industrial.
Yeah, and it's owned by the city in the county, but it's industrial. And so now that we're going for changes, they won't approve the changes because it's not a permitted use under industrial. So we want to get it rezoned to recreation, but they have to redefine their code for recreation. The county's zoning code for recreation is really more for a nature park, not a recreational sports park. The density, what we're doing, the improvements, what we're doing, don't fit. So they're trying to redefine that at the county, what that is, to allow the park to go. I mean, they have a 10% maximum impervious area. Well, that's great if you're doing walking trails in a nature park. this is a sports complex. We've got a lot of different things there. And so they're redefining that at the same time when we go for a zoning change. So that's right now in the county's court to get that changed so that we can go forward with the proposed Cornelius Williams Park.
Question. Do they have anything that has a public zoning that might be more appropriate?
The only thing that we saw when we met, and again, we've got new people at the county, but when we met with Stephanie there, it
Right.
was the recreation. It wasn't a perfect fit. That was the closest that they had,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah, we
So
met with the
even though-
engineers and the planner, and this is what we came up with. So,
The new planner?
yes, ma'am. And the engineer, he was the first one to stop everything for the 10% non-permeable.
Okay.
So we're gonna call it a sports park instead of just a park for the citizens to enjoy?
No, ma'am. It's been a sports park in your comp plan for at least over a decade. So we're not changing anything. We're just doing the park as it was planned.
I mean, it's soccer fields and baseball
It's
fields.
been
Okay.
a sports complex for many years.
Okay, well, I've talked with some of the people who were part of it, and they said initially it wasn't supposed to be a sports park.
No,
So,
it's been a
I'll
sports
get with
park
you.
since I started.
I'll get with you later. Thanks.
Yeah, it's bought that way.
You good?
Yes. The plan that you're talking about, I'm sure there's a number of people in here that have not seen it. How can regular citizens put their eyes on that plan?
I believe Laura has some graphics on that. Now, the color graphics that you have in your office, we did some changing of the parking lot and the pond. We're updating that as part of your park's master plan right now. So
Yeah.
actually, that'll be updated this week.
Okay.
But yeah, so you'll have that.
Okay, what I guess I'm asking then is how can regular citizens get access to it, Laura? Because we should have a pile, if we're spending all their tax dollars on this, they should be a pile of things, just, print off 15 and 20 and see the interest. Give people a chance to look at what we're doing with their money.
Yeah, I think at one time when you had poster boards in the lobby, we had them posted out there too. That one is there.
lobby or in the...
In the lobby right here. We
Can,
had.
can we get Aaron to
So-
run one through the copy machine and put it on Facebook or on our website?
When we have the new one, we'll
Yeah,
put it
that would be good.
out in
That's an
public.
excellent idea.
Fine, that's all I'm asking, is try to get it out to the citizens.
Okay.
And just to
I'll work
clarify,
with
it
Laura.
is a grant. I know it's still citizens' money, but it's
Yeah.
a grant from the state of Florida.
I would like to see the grant as well.
But the
Latricia
grant
can-
paperwork,
Laura can
that
get
would
you the
be.
grant.
Yeah.
She wants a copy of the grant.
I can email it to you.
If you will, send it to all of us.
Sure.
Been a while.
Everybody's new. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Is that it, Ms. Watt? Thank you, sir. Anybody else? All right. Item 4, consent agenda. These are the council minutes from February 18th, 2025. Can I get a motion to approve?
I move approval of the consent agenda. Oh.
We have a first. Do we have a second?
You're good.
Second? No, we're approving the consent. Yeah.
I'll second.
All right. We got a first, got a second. Any discussions or anything? Hang on one second.
Oh, you're so good. Much more. And we're just gonna make sure we don't, need to clean it anyway, right?
Yep, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No? All right, seeing none, move to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. Motion approved. All right. All right, staff updates. City Manager Sue Badeau.
Thank you very much. Quick updates. So last week I shadowed outgoing City Manager Terry Pavard till 1 o'clock on Friday when he departed. And, just kind of taking it all in at this point. Thank you. I also, on Saturday, attended the parade and the ceremony where we presented the key to the city to Quinion Mitchell, which was fantastic. And then yesterday, Latricia invited me to a women's club meeting, so I've been trying to get out there and do what I can. Today, President Cox and I attended the municipal meeting at Levy County, so we can hear what's going on with the other municipalities and then let them know what's going on in the city of Williston. So just trying to get caught up and, get as much information as I can in my brain. So I appreciate everybody's help in getting me up to speed. So that's all I got.
You're welcome aboard. Staff. Police Chief Rolls.
On our previous meeting, we approved to buy the Dart firearm simulator. I am pleased to report that we were supposed to get it the end of March. They've called and we'll be picking up the system tomorrow. So I'm happy to bring that training to the city of Williston and the police department. The event, as many have spoke about for Quinion, went off and ended very well. We had one minor little cat fight. That was it. The community jumped in and said, "Get it out of here. You're not ruining our event," which was very pleasing to me, that the community was that concerned that they didn't want that type of stuff to destroy the moment that we were having. Other than that, the event was absolutely phenomenal. Had no problems at 5 o'clock when we shut down. People slowly started to migrate out and everything went very well. So thanks to the city crew that was out there that helped with the cones. Ms. Hines did a great job with the MCN of the event on short notice.
Thank you.
The mayor presented the key, did an outstanding job with that. So everything went well. Back some time ago at one of our previous meetings, I informed you all that I had put in for a $25,000 grant to buy new computers for our cars. It has been pending for a long time. And then when we had our change in president, they put a freeze on all the federal grants. I'm pleased to announce that our application has moved from under review to pending. So it means we're getting closer. So I just want to bring that to y'all attention and give you an update on it.
Good.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any other staff?
Yes, sir. Just going to give everybody a heads up. March 15th, the fire department will be conducting a training burn at the Williston Golf and Country Club. We're going to put the old clubhouse in the dirt.
Do I get to come watch and cry?
Yes, ma'am. You're more than
I
welcome.
spent a lot of hours there as a kid.
The pool's still full of water if you want to go for a
sure
swim.
it is. It's probably green as can be.
It's a little green, but
Yeah.
you're welcome.
All right. Anybody else from staff? No?
I got one more thing. I'm sorry.
All right, sir.
I'm sorry. I know you watched the news lately and you've seen the results of the homicide we had here in Williston. Through great teamwork with Williston Police Department, Levy County Sheriff Office, and the State Attorney's Office, we were able to successfully get a conviction on that subject. Correct me if I'm wrong, Pastor Ballows, it was life in prison? Mm-hmm. Life in prison. So that is one murder case that we had that is now closed.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, sir.
condolences to the families.
Okay. Council. No?
Is this the right place to talk about the top of the hill again?
Which top, right or left?
The Pesos old place. I guess what I'd like to do is ask permission for us to ask our attorney to write an RFP.
We've already begun that. You
Okay.
asked us to work on it. It's almost done.
I did.
We hope to present it within a month.
That's wonderful. I had not heard that update.
Thanks, Mr. Barber.
Yoo-hoo!
All right. Any other council?
So I just want to say, again, reiterate what everybody has said, that the parade went off very, very well, and I want to, again, thank everybody who played a part into making it a success, especially Miss Latricia Wright. Thank you for your hard work.
All right. Yes. Thank you, ma'am. All right, Mr. Mayor.
I have nothing.
Nope. Okay. Now. All right. New business, item 6. Presentation by Amy Zubile. Restoring Communities Award.
Mayor and council members, am I on? Am I good? All right.
You're good.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Amy Zubile, the Executive Director of the Florida Municipal Electric Association, which is the statewide trade association that represents Florida's 33 municipally owned or public power communities like the city of Williston. Before I get to the presentation, I do want to recognize Council President Cox and Jonathan Bishop from Public Works. One of the many FMEA roles and responsibilities is that of advocacy, both at the state and the federal levels. And last week, Mr. Cox and Mr. Bishop joined FMEA in Washington, D.C. for our National Association, the American Public Power Association's legislative rally. We met with many members of Congress. We had about 15 of our member utilities there, including Williston. And we met with many members of Florida's delegation, including Congresswoman Kamik, to talk about several issues that were important to Florida's public power communities, like continuing our ability to use tax-exempt municipal bonds and FEMA reform to try to help expedite some of our reimbursement process. It's so important for members of Congress to hear from their local constituents. So I just wanted to thank Councilman Cox and Jonathan for being there and joining that and advocating on behalf of you all. I know I'm on the agenda to present your great city with a Restoring Communities Award, but since we arranged that, you all now have 2 awards from FMEA, so if it's okay, I'd like to present them both together.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in addition to advocacy, one of FMEA's other primary roles and responsibilities is that of mutual aid coordination and emergency response coordination. So we bring in all of those extra crews in a hurricane or a bad storm when we need a little bit of extra help. And every year, FMEA awards deserving member utilities with its Restoring Communities Award, which recognizes public power utilities for their exemplary power restoration efforts to their communities and for providing or receiving mutual aid following significant weather events or when a fellow public power communities were in need of extra assistance. So being able to award our member utilities for the excellent work they do is one of the favorite things about my job, and the city of Williston is certainly deserving of this award. 2024 was quite an impactful year for Florida with hurricanes, and I know that the city of Williston received substantial impacts both from Hurricane Debbie and from Hurricane Helene. And thanks to the efforts of Jonathan and Mike and the entire electric utility, you all were prepared for the worst, but you did an exemplary job working tirelessly around the clock to restore power to all of your customers quickly and safely. And that is certainly a reason worth celebrating. And so in addition to the Restoring Communities Award, which I have here, just this past weekend at FMEA's Florida's Lineman Competition, which was held in Ocala, FMEA recognized 17 of our member utilities with our Safety Award, which recognizes and rewards member utilities for safe operations and work environments and having a culture of safety, because that's so critically important, particularly in electric utilities. Utilities are placed into categories based on their total worker hours and rewarded for the most incident-free records. The incident rate that is used to judge utilities is based on the number of work-related reportable injuries or illnesses compared to the total number of worker hours during 2024 as defined by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. So I'm pleased to recognize the City of Williston for a perfect record in safety in their category. So congratulations to the City of Williston's electric utility for your excellent work, and to the entire Williston community for having such a great electric utility.
Yeah, there's data behind it.
Two awards here for you.
Okay.
I can present them to you, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, to Jonathan, however you would like this.
Yeah, and there's crews behind you too.
Those two gentlemen right
Oh,
there.
there you are.
Yep.
Yeah, the crew's actually behind you. I don't know if you can see them, Mike. There's a whole crew's out there in the hallway.
Could you guys come on up
Come
front,
on in,
please?
guys.
Round for pictures. And you two have to squat. I'm getting.
Yeah, here comes Jonathan.
Boy, you are short.
Yeah, they make you look short, don't they? There you go.
I'm the short one here. This is y'all's award. There you go.
They look good in their shirts too. Y'all look sharp.
Thank you, Miss Amy. All right. Alrighty. Item B, discussion with possible action, reduction of liens on the Waymar Inc. property. Attorney Doug McCoy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Doug McCoy. I'm an attorney over in Bronson and in Trenton, and I represent Miss Rainey Jackson as she acts as the personal representative of her mother's estate, Mary Ann Denise Jackson. And you're looking at a packet that I've provided for folks. Maybe we're getting the packet twice, possibly.
This is our packet.
Oh, okay. Something else.
You better give this.
There's another green folder there with basically what I want to talk about. This is Waymar of Williston Incorporated, and the your part. Very good picture. The property was bought by the Jackson family in the early 1970s. Rainey came here with her father Wayne and her mother Mary Ann from Miami. Wayne had sold a service station down there, came to Williston, found the property, formed the corporation, started to run it. He was working at the gas station, but also at Williston High School. He was a shop teacher at the high school. I don't know if anybody's been here long enough to remember that. And then unfortunately he died in a tragic accident with the railroad, with the train, automobile accident. And so that was May of 1975. And so Rainey was about 15 years old, something like that, in high school. Her mother had been a homemaker, didn't have the wherewithal really to keep it going in the same manner that her father would have. Tried to, get some other mechanics to come in there and do what was needed. Long story short, the corporation was administratively dissolved in 1976. So then it became, whatever it could be. They rented it out. I think Bill's Tire was even there for a little while before he moved down the way. Time went on. Nothing ever really happened. In the early 80s, the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, or maybe it was a predecessor of that agency, came along and says, hey, we got to pull the gas tanks out. They didn't have the wherewithal financially to put new tanks back in under all the new codes, so it was discontinued as a service station and became very much what you see today, although some, tire changing and mechanical things were attempted in there for a while. So move it forward to the early 2000s, the state started to have its protocol for discovering contaminated soils at old stations and things like that. They discovered some contamination there, and they enlisted it in a program that was going to help remediate that. But with that comes a lot of continual testing and things like that. Not too long after that, I don't know when exactly, but in those days, the city didn't have a code enforcement regimen like you do now. And so by then, the thing had been vacant for a good long time. You guys came in with your code enforcement regimen, and quite a large amount of code enforcement liens have accrued against the property. There's no doubt about that. You know, the point is, and I'm not here asking for pity for Rainey or her family, but I am asking for mercy. And sometimes the two seem pretty similar, but they never really, once it was known what was going on and they had a chance to do something, they didn't have the financial wherewithal to do anything with it. So finally, Miss Jackson died in 2023. Rainey comes to me to do the probate of her estate. The probate looks relatively straightforward in many respects, except she owns 50% of a corporation that's been dissolved since 1976. The other 50% is owned by her deceased husband, who died in 1975. We went to first we thought we had to open a probate for him, but we finally found that he had one in 1978. Unfortunately, they didn't distribute the 50% of the corporation when they could have. We had to reopen that old probate, so we did. Now, at this point, sometime a year or so ago, Rainey came to you guys, and Joel Martin was with Rainey, I believe, or Joel's part of this. Let me explain. Joel's here in town. Joel and some people with some financial wherewithal and with some capability are under contract to buy this from Rainey, from the estate, as soon as I can get the title cleared so that that sale can be made. And so at that point, you guys informed Rainey what she needed to do. She needed to clean it up. She needed to keep it mowed. She needed to do, your list. I think here's where I didn't communicate really well with her, and I take some responsibility for this. I didn't realize how long it was going to take to get to this point with her father's probate, her mother's probate, the dissolved corporation, the transfer of the stock. So it's taken a while. And we grant you that during that period of time, she was unable financially to keep it up to the standards that you guys require. And so we're here to just ask for a substantial reduction in these code enforcement liens. Joel represents a group that will do something good with it, and I'm going to surrender the floor to him if you would like to hear from him about some plans for the property or whatever. But Rainey and her brother Shane are the only beneficiaries of both their mother and father's estate. They need every penny they can get. They both live in the same home out on some acreage right across from Little Food Ranch, across 121, right out there in their mother's home. They really need two homesteads. They've got children and grandchildren, and so I'm not here asking you to, jeopardize the city budget on behalf of somebody that hadn't been here a long time, been good citizens of this place, do their part, and really do need for this sale to bring them a little bit. This is the last nest egg, and we are 60 years old or so. I know how old some of you guys are too. I went to school with some of our people here. Once you have only one little chunk left, you really need to be able to do the thing that you need to do. So that's why we're here asking for mercy. I'll explain any of the legal part of it if you like, and Rainey and Joel are available both. But we would love to see that number come way down. Let's get it sold. I've got a contract, and all I need to do now is get Shane, her brother, to sign one consent. The judge is going to appoint her as a special trustee of the dissolved corporation, and that's the pleading that you see in my green folder is that pleading. I have, the confirmation that it will be signed, and we should get it closed by the end of the month. And then at that point, it'll be Joel and his group, and they'll take off, and I'm sure, make something happen over there.
Now, it's been cleared through the EPA. It's soil, there's no issues.
It's not cleared. It is in their program, and it is not going to be an expenditure on the part of the new owner per se.
Okay.
So but they've got to do the reporting, stay in the program, continue to have it administered, and there will be certain things that would not be allowed to go there. I'm certain,
Right.
that there will be some restrictions that they would have.
Okay.
Anyone?
Council, got some questions?
I guess I would like to hear from Kirsten, her thoughts.
Well, I sort of 10,000 foot view. You all have the authority, if you choose. You may decide to reduce the lien by some amount. You may decide to reduce the lien all the way. That is completely within, or decide not to reduce the lien. So all of that is completely within your authority to do. The process that was just explained by Mr. McCoy is pretty standard. I say standard. It's not atypical in probate cases to see something like this happen, where a defunct corporation or some piece of property that's unknown isn't necessarily dealt with in a probate as it should have been, so you have to go back, and it really does take an exceptional amount of time to do that, longer than I think anyone thinks it should actually take. As far as the code enforcement status of the property, you all did cite this property for code enforcement issues. It has been accruing liens. It has not been placed in compliance to the point where it can be taken off the liens. So they do continue to accrue, is my understanding as well. Okay, I'm getting nods from Laura, so that's correct. So every day that goes by, this continues to accrue lien, and obviously the amount goes up until either the lien's paid off or the property comes into compliance. So I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have for me. I will flag for you that I'm not, Mr. McCoy, I'm not 100% sure, and I could have just not understood it in your presentation, and I apologize. But what is the status of the contract for sale?
I did not put the extension in there, but we do have an extension. So we still are under contract until April 15th, but we're planning on closing by the end of this month. The version you have there is out of date, but we're still on board.
Okay.
Buyer's still on board, and that's Mr. Martin.
May I ask how much the lien that is on the property as of roughly today is fine? So.
Yes, sir, you may, and let's ask one of your people that if
It's
we can.
$173,250.
I've been isolated. I can't read. 100 and what?
$73,000.
Because they didn't keep the yard clean.
No, not quite.
Not quite?
Not that simple. I don't
It's
think.
more than that.
It's a little more complicated.
Yeah, to my recollection, when Miss Jackson came to begin with, we did look at the property, and I can tell you that I'll say we, but I'm talking about the Board of Adjustments and Code Enforcement, referred it to us for, actually, I don't think foreclosure is the right word, but taking. We actually thought about taking it, but because it was under the DEP monitoring well, we decided we didn't want it.
You're not alone in that.
Oh, we would have already taken it like we did the property at the top of the hill.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but my mom tried to sell it years ago because she did that financially.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
We can get you to come
that
up.
has nothing to do with what I'm saying. Let me finish my sentence.
Yeah, please state your name and where you're from, please.
My name's Rainey Jackson.
Shit,
I'm the
interrupted me.
daughter of Mary Ann Jackson, the woman and my father who owned it, Wayne Jackson.
Okay.
She tried to sell it, but she couldn't find a realtor who would sell it because of it going under the state program, because they were afraid that it would get transferred if something were to come up about the fines, the findings on the
It
property.
would have. That's why we didn't want it.
So that's why she had problems selling it because she couldn't get Cookie had it for years.
But that's not what I'm trying to say at the end of my
And I'm
sentence here.
sorry, I'm sorry.
What I'm trying to say is we could have taken it, would have taken it, because of the, our policy is a certain percentage of the fair market value of the property, and then we proceed with processing that lien to foreclosure. And I don't know if foreclosure is the right word, but taking of the property. But the reason we did it was because of the DEP status of it. And at that point, what we told Ms. Jackson to do was go clean up the property. And when she got it back in code compliance, we would consider reducing the lien so that she could sell it. And I can tell you the pictures that we've just been presented with today. The grass is sort of mowed in the front, but all the rest of this is not.
I'm not going to argue with you about that.
Yeah, we don't normally reduce fines until it is in compliance.
Okay.
And that's just Deborah sitting here. I don't know how anybody else feels.
So one of the things to keep in mind when you talk about, and I'm just giving you all the information that you need, the decision is ultimately up to you all. Just keep in mind that the process that Councilmember Jones was just talking about is really a foreclosure on a municipal lien. That's what we did at what we call the Top of the Hill property with Peso. So the viability of foreclosing on, in the event that we say, okay, fine is reduced to 0, there's a transfer made, and then the property stays in the same condition, you'd have to restart accruing your fine in order to have a really reasonable reason to go to a foreclosure and obtain the property, or else sell it to someone who will put it in place. So that's the only thing that I want to keep in mind, is that it's not riskless. There is some amount of risk to you, because you will need to sort of wait for that fine to accrue to a level where it makes sense to take it to a code enforcement foreclosure.
Yeah. I will also say that another thing that we have done in the past, the old Winn-Dixie property that's now Homestead Park, we had a buyer for it. It sat as it sat, and its fines were like over $250,000 because it sat there for years as well. And Mr. Martin came in, not Mr. Martin, listen to me. Yeah, thank you. Came in and said that he wanted to buy the property, and it had those huge liens on it. And what we said was, we will reduce them if you clean up the property. So that's another thing that we could do. We gave them a certain period of time to clean it up, and when we saw that it was clean, then we reduced them.
Approximately how much longer do you maybe anticipate that you will, before this is complete?
I would hope that we would conclude the estate before April 15th, because this is the very last thing that needs to happen, at least before May 15th anyway. The problem is, without putting this money from the sale into the estate, we really don't have the wherewithal to complete the estate. So we have an asset. We need to convert that into cash so that it can be put in the estate and then divided out among the beneficiaries. And so without an estoppel letter from the city saying this much or some sort of waiver, we really need to close before, based on a number, to accomplish what we need in the probate court.
So basically, I kind of look at it as two ways here. We can either do what you said and do the way that Matt Crandall did it, or we recoup attorney fees, some administrative fees from the city. Then we have a piece of property that's going to be taken care of. It's going to be cleaned. And
you're right, Mr. Crandall did pay all that. He did pay the legal fees and the attorney fees.
And, the gentleman there that's Mr. Martin, if he's got a group that's going to get it cleaned up. Do you have anticipation of when you...
That's what we do. You want to come to the mic, please?
Yep.
County, Citrus Springs, we have a crew that can clean that place in a week. I spent my own, I went down there with my tractor a few times this past summer and mowed it several times, about every 2 to 3 weeks. but we didn't want to get too in depth if we weren't going to be able to help her out with the money situation, because it wasn't worth it for her. But as soon as we get the green light on this thing, we plan on coming in there and resurrecting that whole area. Not just that, but the lot next to it, all those trees, the mangroves from one survey marker to the other. We're going to clean it out. What we like to do with the old gas station is to keep it and rehab it into an old gas station. Modernize it, of course, because it's going to need everything. It needs a roof. It needs pretty much the only thing left to be the walls and the foundation. I've talked to the EPA people quite often. They're putting up a mobile trailer on the side, which will start sucking the air out. It'll have to be there for probably about a year. But everything's clean. There is no contamination underneath the ground. So once this, because I at first asked them if they could move it back a little bit, 'cause it's kind of in our way, because we want to redo the building and everything. But it needs a lot. But I bought the old property across the street there in 2018. We kind of rehabbed it. And it's taken a lot. These are old buildings around here. Old wiring, old everything, plumbing.
Right.
It's a constant thing. I was up on the roof yesterday trying to fix the roof. Carlton came over and thought I was going to fall off. So I was too late to get up there.
What typically
Old Lamar
happens?
back there in the back, but not quite. But anyway, that's what we like to do with it. And we have, as soon as we get the green light, we'll be on it. So,
Okay.
Kirsten, what typically happens when a property is to be sold and there are liens? Does the person that's buying it typically pay the liens?
It depends on the contract that you have. So if a lot of contracts will say something like, buyer is taking possession of the property subject to all liens that are recorded. But in this case, it seems like that's not what we're looking at. It looks like an arrangement where the seller is going to be the individual who pays for the lien, whatever the reduced amount is, and that's subject to, obviously, a couple of other things in the contract. So the way that they have it put together is that the seller will be responsible. Please correct me if I read your contract wrong.
No, that's correct. We are hoping that you would give us an estoppel letter or a payoff statement. If there's a number, we would love for it not to be a number. That'd be wonderful. But if there is a number, then it would be like paying off a bank mortgage or something at closing. You would get a check from the closing agent, and title would not pass until you had been paid according to whatever your number was. And so hopefully what we're saying is, yes, it is coming out of the seller's money. I don't have the authority, obviously. I don't represent the buyers, but whatever level of confidence in what they're going to do, I would certainly try to mediate, facilitate, get communication going or whatever. We just kind of need it to happen relatively quickly if we're not going to be able to achieve a number that's doable for these folks. Then that going forward phase that you're talking about not committing until you know what the future holds, that would take a little bit more communication cooperation on the buyer's side. That, if we must, we'll try, but I can't just say how that would go.
May I ask,
Other than zero?
may I ask who you do represent? If you don't represent the buyer, do you represent the seller?
I represent Ms. Jackson as personal representative of her mother's estate. So yes, the seller.
So other than,
Oh, sorry. I didn't know you had another question. Go ahead.
other than zero, what number is your client looking for?
I'd like to sell the property and see something done to the property that it improves it for the city of Williston. I've lived here a long time. See some kind of improvement. Joel's presented ideals for me that is in my range, and I'm not going to get rich off of selling this piece of property by no means, even if there was no fine at all, because of all the issues with the property, because of what he would have to do, or anybody that went in there and either cleared it or whatever, and had the EPA and everybody in there. So, but yeah, 5.
If I might, we would hope to estimate the real cost to the city and maybe reimburse that, not the punitive costs of the, and I understand why you have a bit of a punitive aspect to your code lien so that people will get out there and do it. But there's got to be a relatively low number of real true costs to the city, and I would think around $5,000 typically would cover it from my experience. That's why I just threw out a number, but I'm just thinking, if something in the real range, you guys have done some inspection, some other things, but not actually maintained it and that kind of thing, I don't think. And so if we could get at a number, we would hope it would be in that range.
Mike, can I step in?
Yes, ma'am.
And I would love to see this property. I drive past it all the time. I'd love to see it fixed up. But my question is, if we just say, let's reduce these fines to what it costs the city, what are the point of our ordinances? If everybody comes in and says, well, I couldn't get to it, and I'm sorry to be the bad guy here, but I think we have to treat every citizen fairly, and we can't go and say to one citizen, you have to pay this fine, and then the next citizen, you don't have to pay this fine. And I know there's been a precedent in the past of forgiving, and I disagree with that precedent, and I think that unfortunately that needs to be changed. I'm not saying that we need to hold out for every penny on this one, but I think saying that, well, they just didn't get to it and they didn't have time and all these years and no efforts, very little efforts been made to deal with it, I think then we might as well just throw our ordinances out the window and say, why bother? Because what's the point if we're just going to forgive when people don't follow the ordinances inside the city?
And I know our crews have made 3 or 4 dump runs, maybe even more than that. I know they've taken mattresses and other things to the dump. I don't know how many times, but 2 or 3 that I know of that we've asked them to do it because it looks so bad and we got complaints. And my question to Kirsten is, how much is that actual cost? I know we had liens that we filed, we had court costs, we had any clerk of the court costs. What else do we have?
Sitting here today, I do not know. I mean, I imagine that it's the cost of whatever work that the city has done, which I wouldn't be able to estimate. I don't think that we've had any costs other than the recording of the lien, which is fairly low cost.
They're on contract, by the way, so that's why it's no other cost.
There's an administrative fee that you all charge, which is about $250, I believe, which covers your staff time to put together the code enforcement, generally speaking. But how much time? I know I haven't spent a ton of time on it outside of our meetings and maybe a quick conversation with Laura here and there, so the legal fees aren't going to be particularly high. I'm trying to think of any other actual costs that the city may have incurred.
You think $5,000 would cover it?
$5,000 would definitely cover at least generally how much work I think I've done and the work that I know has been done, but I have no concept of how much work your other staff members have done on this, so I really don't want to speak to that. It would definitely more than cover what I've put into it.
What you are aware of.
How would this? Sorry, you had a question?
I did.
All right, you got
So since you came before us, was it last year?
It's been a good year, yes, ma'am.
Okay. How much have you put towards these liens? How much have you paid towards the amount of the liens?
She's paid a lot for the probate, for my services and those things. She's been bleeding money for a while.
So again, the question is, how much have you put towards your liens?
I have not. And I understand that. I didn't, when I came to y'all, I came to ask questions, to find out information, and to get with my attorney. It has been a hard road for you, the city of Williston. With my mother, she was getting dementia in the back end and hard to work with. I'm not trying to make excuses for her. She left me in a bad situation with all the stuff she left me with. And I'm trying to clean up and fix. I had so much insurance when she passed away, between burying her, paying for the attorney, and other issues that she did not take care of properly, which I'd have lost all this property if I had not taken care of, is all gone. I mean, I did not get to everything that I needed to. and everything else is in probate at this time. So that answers your question. No, I have not paid any fines, but nobody. I guess I should have been more adamant about
Yeah, I don't
something.
know that we've ever asked people to pay fines until the very end. I don't know that we've had. I don't think we have a provision to even collect them.
Miss
We
Ballou,
could, but we haven't.
how could
Somebody
this,
comes up- oh, go ahead.
how would this impact our other properties that we have liens going forth?
So your ordinances allow you all complete discretion regarding waiver of liens. So you could decide we want to do this for everyone, or you could decide this is a special case based on these circumstances and it doesn't apply to everyone. So that's absolutely within your discretion.
Okay. You have something, Lee? You're next, Mr. Mayor.
I'm just kind of like with Meredith. I mean, I've been on this council a couple of years, and almost everybody that comes forward looking for us to decrease liens, we decrease liens. And it's like, what's the purpose? We're looking at, yes, the attorney fees may not calculate up to $5,000, but we're looking at years that you can't hear me, sorry. Years that staff have had to go and do different things related to that property, so just to drop it down to $5,000, I don't think is right. And it sounds as though we are going to drop the lien so that they'll have money at the end to divide amongst each other. So I think we just need to think about that, because I believe there have been people within the city who we were getting ready to foreclose on, and they had to pay all of their liens at once before we dropped it. So we just need to be mindful, one, of the money and our policies, and then mindful of, two, of the look.
Ms. Jones?
Okay, I have a couple things I want to say. I think that the council's not wrong, that if we continue to do this, it's kind of, what's the point of our ordinances? But I do have to say, as your community development person, this is blight, and we have an opportunity here to get rid of some blight. We also are penalizing somebody for 11 years of liens when she didn't have this property until 2 years ago. So it really wasn't her responsibility. It was her mother's, who's now passed. And I believe the precedent, and I want to do this because we're going to have more of these. We have more coming in the next few weeks, actually. And I just want to make sure that we do the same thing for everybody. I believe with Matt Crandall, and I don't remember, Deborah, you have a better memory. I believe we did 10% for Matt Crandall. And I believe his lien was
We gave him
80.
so many years to clean it up.
And he also had a commitment to the city to clean it up within 12 months and do something with that. I know some people are going to be, mad at me on either side, whatever I say, but let's just remember that this is blight, and the entire 11 years was not necessarily the people who are responsible for it now's responsibility. So take those things into consideration. And I see people shaking their heads, so I'm going to sit down.
Mr. Mayor, did you have anything?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Jones, but I have a couple of questions, and they're not for you, so you can relax. Haven't we already set a precedent? I know your position, but we've done this more than once where we have reduced fines, and almost every time it was for what Ms. Jones put out was, okay, we can not reduce this fine, it doesn't get sold, and we're stuck with the blight. What a wonderful word. And And that's what we're stuck with. The other option is, if we get it so it can be sold, is the property around it in the city?
Yeah.
Will they be paying city taxes where you're building, sir?
Yes.
I don't know where this property is.
On 27, going east, go across the railroad track, and it's right there on the right.
The old gas station.
Is that still the city of Williston? Okay,
sir.
that's all I care. So that's my point. You can have blight if you can work it out, and we have done it in the past. And if you choose the narrow view and say, we can't have this, we can't. The only reason you're doing this is because there is a positive future for gaining money for the city of Williston to do his projects. So I just wanted to make sure everybody thinks about all the possibilities, and good luck.
Mr. Barber or Mr. Bishop, how much time do you think the city has spent to kind of help clean that up?
Honestly, it'd be a guess. I'd say 40 to 60 hours. But that's just a guess. I don't have a wrote down timeline for it.
Okay. All right. Okay, council. Mr. Barber, you have anything you'd like to?
Yeah, we can discuss.
Microphone. I said, what do we do? Do we make a motion or?
We can figure out what to make a motion for.
You can make a motion for
Anybody can
10,000
make a
to
motion.
reduce the liens to $10,000.
That's a motion.
That's my motion.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have first, we got a second. Any other discussions? No? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
So it's 2 to 3.
2 to 3.
I don't know what that was. 2 to 3, which way?
For the nays.
Who were the yes? Not me.
Okay.
Was it you, Mr. President?
I guess it was Mr. Cox.
I was
I didn't
no.
hear his vote.
Okay.
No, he said no.
Could
All
you
right.
please define the vote?
Okay. Those who said aye was Miss Jones.
I know. I'm watching hands.
Okay. And the noes were,
You two?
that's 3.
And so that's 3 no's.
Yes. 3.
Oh, he said no.
Mary, yes.
Oh,
I said no.
I didn't hear him say no, but he
So
did.
the motion then is shot down.
Okay,
Yes.
so now we need another motion. You're not gonna like this one any better. I move that we reduce the fines to $5,000.
Second.
We have a first, we got a second. Any discussion?
That discussion is exactly what's been said. We need to get it back on the tax rolls. And it is on the tax rolls, but it's blighted. If you look at it, they're only charging for blighted, not for a viable piece of property. And if Mr. Martin is willing to make it viable, clean it up, it's an entry, it's a gateway to the city of Williston. It needs to be clean. And I believe that he will do that.
I agree that it needs to be clean, but we have reduced it now to probably about 95% of what is owed. That's not acceptable to me. And I understand that, selling it and getting it to a level that they'll have money to separate amongst themselves. I get it, I understand, but it shouldn't be at the cost of the city.
But our estimated cost sounds like it's only been around $5,000. So it's not really at the cost of the city.
11 years, 40 hours?
I mean, that
Seriously?
money, that money is.
I'm just saying, I mean, I'm just saying,
Pie in the sky.
we're talking about calculating. Yeah, I would agree with reducing it, but not $5,000 or $10,000.
But if she cleaned up everything, well, this could be me not knowing what I'm talking about. But if everything was cleaned up to code, the lien would become zero, right? Or no?
No.
It would just stop.
It just ceases
You just stop
calculating.
accruing more.
Correct.
Okay.
Joby? State your name, where you from?
I'm Joel Penny. I live in Williston, Florida. Is there a way that I'm Joby Penny. I live in Williston, Florida. Is there a way that y'all could wash away from what her previous mother debt was, and then just calculated what she owes for the past 2 years, and then she pay it and then be done?
I actually attempted to do that sitting over here.
Okay.
And at $50 a day for a year, in my book,
Should be like 20,000.
that's $18,250.
I think that's a fair.
So, I mean, if and that's for 1 year.
Oh,
And that's when she
1
came.
year?
That's when she came to see us.
So 18,000 is for 1 year.
2 years. since she-
18,550.
Plus
$250.
times 2 for the 2 years that she has owned it, that she has been responsible for it. I would be comfortable with that.
I don't know that she knew about the fines until the year she came, which was a year ago.
But she knew that it needed to be cleaned up.
Oh, yeah, she definitely did.
So whether that, I mean, we're discounting the fines prior to that.
Yeah.
So she knew that that it needed to be cleaned up from.
Yeah. So you're
that
talking
point on.
36.5 is what you're talking.
Mr. McCoy?
Well, if I might, too, at no time has she had a clear title to the piece of property. So at no time has she really understood that she was going to see some light at the end of the tunnel here on recovery of anything. And honestly, she lives within her means, which are not a lot. So it's really not been one of those things that has been obstinance on her part, or any kind of negativity or any kind of attitude. It has simply really truly been a matter of her working within a very small budget and never getting to the point that was, and she thought along the way too, just like in the last years of her mother's life. I mean, Cookie King had it for a while trying to look into, getting it sold, and it just has been a piece of property, with an albatross over it. And so no one has wanted it. And so finally, I guess things have finally matured. Everybody's gotten comfortable with what DEP is doing over there, at least Joel and his group. And so it just took a long time for it to ever become anything except just a dead zone that it was for all those years. And we're finally there, maybe.
Okay.
I make a motion that we decrease.
We have
We have a motion on the floor.
for
Oh, what was it?
5,000.
5,000.
Oh, I thought it was gone.
No one.
Okay.
All right, so we have
Alexa seconded.
Okay, so let's vote.
first
we need
and
to
second. All right, any other discussion? Nope, seeing that, move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. All right, 2-3. I make a motion 15,000 that will cover our legal fees, that'll cover some of the administrative.
You need to pass your gavel if you want to make a
sorry.
motion. You can't make
What
a
do
motion.
you want to do?
You cannot make a motion unless you pass your gavel.
I make a motion 15,000. That covers our attorney fees, it covers, the staff cleaning it up.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. We have a first and a second. All right, is there any other discussion?
Seeing none?
Seeing none, I move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. No.
No.
We have 3-1, 3-2, and the ayes have it.
Could I please know who said yes? Thank you.
Thank you. Can we get an estoppel letter to give to the closing agent referencing that, and then we'll provide that to the closing agent. And assuming, and I can't guarantee everything, but assuming that we do go forward with the closing, we will have a check cut to the city of Williston.
I know each closing agent is different. Would it be possible for something to be sent over to me and I'll take a review of it?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Can you see my card on the green folder there? If you could shoot me an email so that I know where to send it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll email it to you. That'd be great.
Perfect.
All right.
Do you need a motion for the estoppel letter?
No, it's administrative to follow through.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So I just have one question, because I've been having the fortune or misfortune to just be listening. You have no guarantees that that property will be cleared when it's sold in the motion that was made. So there should be an addition to that motion that it's contingent upon the property being cleaned up, which is the whole point of the thing.
Absolutely.
And they could, things could change. They could decide not to do anything on it, and then you have just released all of that money and got no guarantees around it. Just for your consideration.
All right.
So we need a second motion.
I make a motion that the property be guaranteed to be cleaned up within 12 months of its purchase, and that if this purchase falls through, then the release of the liens does not hold.
Yeah.
Well,
the fines are reestablished.
If I can just, I want to respect the procedure and the motion on the floor, but just for my clarification, I believed that Mr. McCoy had indicated, so that would require an agreement on the part of the buyer. And I haven't heard anything from the buyer that would indicate that he is willing to do that. So, I mean, we absolutely can. I just want to flag for us that I've not heard anything that's indicated.
The only thing I have heard is Mr. McCoy saying, do this and I'll jump right on it.
Mr. Martin.
Several times. I mean, Mr. Martin.
That. Yeah.
Mr. Martin, if I'm not mistaken, had said that they would be starting on it pretty much right away.
We will. That's all we've been waiting for is all this.
Right.
I mean, we've got equipment. That's what we do.
So you can see the council's concern. They're just looking for a guarantee that you don't decide to take all that money and all your guys and go to Aruba.
No.
Okay? So that, I think it's a reasonable concern. We just need to find a way to do it.
We know several people in this room. I think Mr. Hires there can tell you that we've what we say we'll do. I'm not in on it.
And I believe you, sir. I believe you, and I believe Ms. Hires, but that's nothing in writing.
And we really need to get something back from Chief Rawls over there too, because he parks his car there a lot. It's right there.
Again.
Probably should need some.
So I'm asking the attorney, Ms. Kristen.
I don't want to be involved in it because
keeps the vagrants off.
I might charge you more.
Well, what about the fire chief over there looking at his phone?
Excuse us, can we get back to
Thank you. Ms. Kristen,
the topic?
can you prepare something for them that protects the city in the event that they do not do what they are saying they're going to do?
So if I can clarify the motion, because I do still want to respect the procedure, but if I am hearing the intent of the motion correctly, I think that what I'm hearing is we'd like an estoppel letter that says it will be reduced to $15,000 should the sale of this go through, should the contract be accepted. If the contract is not accepted, then the fine is not reduced. And in addition to that, if the contract does go through and the property is not cleaned up and in compliance within 12 months of the sale, then the buyer would be responsible for the full amount.
Remaining amounts.
The full amount of the lien. Is that what I'm hearing? I'm just clarifying. Okay.
Well, you've already paid $15,000 of it, so it won't be for the full. Again, it would be for the remaining.
Yes. Is that?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, I didn't hear a second. I'm sorry.
All right.
If I might, please, what's important to the title company is that the lien be released upon the payment of the $15,000 at the closing. And so the agreement, at that point, it's released. Any kind of agreement you can get with the buyers is going to be between the city and the buyers.
Separate.
Yeah, it's a separate agreement.
But it's an unusual way to do it, it seems like to me, given the land title question.
Yeah, yes, it would be a separate agreement between the buyer and the city.
Mr. Martin, are you okay with
Is
that?
the buyer willing to do that?
Okay with
So the practical problem is the city and the buyer have to do their dance and work out their agreement before we close the transaction, because to ask the buyer to just accept whatever standard is going to be. So I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of an attorney that would say, okay, do we know if we have a buyer or not? No, we don't, probably, until we figure out what kind of agreement there's going to be with the city. It adds a level of complexity that is substantial.
Yeah, I believe that. But are you the buyer, sir?
I am.
So therefore, it's a rather simple matter to ask you, would you be willing to go into a contract with the city of Williston that protects the city in case you do not perform what you said you're going to do?
My thinking is go ahead and try to get it cleaned up before it closes even. And then that way there's no questions. Because we're talking a month before we do that anyway. We'll just go in there and clean up everything and get it cleaned up.
At your expense.
Yes. Yeah. I do everything.
That is reasonable.
I don't ask nobody for money. I do everything on my own.
Would you come to my house?
So Kirsten, we
my
don't need a
motion
motion.
is-
Do a motion.
I already did. I made a motion.
I second the motion.
Yep.
All right, got a first, got a second.
Mr. Martin has indicated that he was in agreement.
Yep.
Yes.
Just a separate sheet of paper.
Yep. All right, any other discussion? No, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's 5-0.
Thank goodness.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, sir. I hope
All right, who
it
said, who?
does a good job.
We'll clean it up.
Motion, I did the second.
I'm talking about your whole project.
Oh.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
See ya.
Item C, discussion with possible action, utilizing the old upholstery shop building located at the Williston Airport for a training room for the Williston Police Department, Chief Mike Rolls, and Airport Manager Benton Stiegel.
Thank you, Council. I believe it was the last meeting, Chief Rolls brought to the council a piece of equipment that they were working on purchasing for firearms training, basically a firearm simulator. And I kind of jokingly threw out there that we had some space out at the airport, and we did have some space at the airport. Many of you know that Enrique Martinez has closed up his shop, and his family is in the process of cleaning it out. It's about I'd say 20 by 20 office that Henry's paid about $200 a month for, which is pretty easy to write off given the benefits that we would be getting from it. So we talked to Chief Rolls and Major Fortney about it, and they think that there would be a great opportunity and place to put that, especially since it's away from the police department. They have a lot more control of the training environment out there instead of being pulled every which way at the police department. And I think it'd be great to have at the airport as well. And it's not going to be a big loss leader for us as far as revenue is concerned.
Mr. President,
Yes,
when it's possible, I'd like to speak on this.
Okay, you want to go before I ask a question?
Yes. While you and Chief of the Police Department were working this out, did you decide who was it? You going to lose it from your budget, or were we going to pay it from our budget, or were we going to ask for a budget increase?
I think Mr. Benton made that pretty clear, that the cost that they were receiving for that building is it good to say minute?
Yes, sir.
So there's going to be no charge, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
It's
So Benton,
security for the airport.
The room will just be allowed the police officers to be there. You will still own it. They will not be leasing it or renting it or anything, right?
Minor correction. We will still have to have a rental agreement on the building, but we would have the same caveat on that rental agreement that we have for the animal shelter. That the benefit to the city of Williston greatly exceeds the usefulness of the rent from the lease.
And if the police department decides it's no longer useful, like when we finally get the new safety complex, then it would just go back to you with no penalties.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So this is a building that the city owns?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's part of T Hangar Building C. So if you drive in the second gate on 18th Street, you have Alpha Bravo Charlie. As soon as you make that left-hand turn into that T Hangar row, you have a small office, and then it has T Hangars 1, 2, and 3 on that side. So we're talking about the little office right there. It's got two parking spots and a handicap parking spot.
Okay. Any other questions? No? All righty. Ms. Kirsten, this needs a vote or consensus?
This will need a vote.
All right. So I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the utilization of the old upholstery shop building for the training room for the Williston Police Department.
I'll second.
All right, got a first, got a second, got any discussion? Anybody? No? All right, we'll move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Who first? You did first?
I made the motion.
Okay. Second. Second. All right, item D. Resolution 2025-34, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, approving the signing of all agreements with Wright Pierce to provide miscellaneous engineering services for planning, public works, and utilities, and approving an effective date. City Planner Laura Jones and Public Works Supervisor Donald Barber.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is a continuing contract with Wright Pierce. They perform services. A lot of these services are at the direction of the City Council. Things like some of the issues over on Northwest 7th, some of the issues over on Southeast 5th, and many, many more. They go through the city manager, generally, again, at council's direction. We have run out of money in the current budget. We suspected this would happen as it's happened in previous years. So in the budget, if you look at your stormwater budget, we have engineering services that are there. So it is technically budgeted. It's just not budgeted for these specific departments. So what we're asking is for that stormwater money that's in the engineering to be utilized and moved. And you'll see the disbursement is $25,000 will go to planning for miscellaneous services, and $50,000 will go to utilities. And then we present the budget in May. We'll make those changes. We're tracking how much we're using year to year and changing what those services are so that we're trying to more properly budget that. So.
Okay. All right. Any council questions?
So it'll be moved from stormwater to these two areas.
Correct.
Okay. Nope. All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve resolution 2025-34.
Got a second?
I second.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? It's 5-0. All right, item E, Resolution 2025-36, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, approving the amendment of the State of Florida, approving the amendment to the State of Florida Department of Transportation Public Transportation Grant Agreement for financial project number 442505-1-94-25 regarding the Williston City Municipal Airport design and construction of runway 5-23 lighting and signage at the Williston Airport. Authorizing appropriate parties to sign any documents required to execute such an amendment on behalf of the City of Williston and providing an effective date. Airport Manager Benton Stiegel.
Yes, sir. So after looking over this, I think I made this mistake. I won't blame it on anybody else, but this particular one is not an amendment. This is a PTGA to add state funding to a federal project. So what this project is we have a design for transferring our runway lighting from runway 523 from the halogen bulbs that they are to LEDs. And this is the design phase for that. It's a 95% grant through the FAA. This is the DOT's 5% match to federal funding. So that was my mistake. I should have caught that on the resolution. But it's not an amendment. This is the PTGA for the FDOT match for an FAA grant. So the fiscal impact for the city, there's none, because this is a ready match. So we have nothing involved other than just receiving the money.
Okay.
PTGA, can you just
Public
de-acronym it?
Transportation Grant Agreement. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Mr. President, that's my mistake. There was an amendment and there was an agreement, and I think I put just amendment on both of them. So
Okay.
I apologize.
All right.
I move approval of resolution 2025-36.
I'll second.
We got a first, we got a second. Any other discussion? Anybody? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 5-0. Who was it that made the motion?
I did.
Denver? And second, was that you, Miss Meredith? Who seconded that? D? All right. Item F. Resolution 2025-37, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, approving the amendment to the State of Florida Department of Transportation Public Grant Agreement for Financial Project Number 442505-1-94-01 regarding the Williston Municipal Airport Taxiway G rehabilitation and realignment, authorizing the appropriate parties to sign required, execute such amendment on the behalf of the City of Williston, providing an effective date. Mr. Stiegel.
Yes, sir. So this one is an amendment, only in scope, not in dollars. Basically, Taxiway G is under construction right now and planning to be finished up by the end of the month. However, the FAA, since they are funding part of it, has requested that we conduct what they're calling an Exhibit A, which is a property inventory of the airport. Typically, this goes along with our master plan, and we have a master plan coming up in the next couple of years. But there's the new federal requirement that they want everybody to update their Exhibit A's as quickly as they possibly can. So we are, because the scope of the work changed, we have to amend the FDOT agreement, even though it has nothing to do with FDOT really. But because the scope changed, we have to amend the PTGA for FDOT.
Okay.
Little bit of housekeeping.
All right. Do you need a motion? Any discussion? Any motions?
Anybody else want to do it?
No.
I move approval of resolution 2025-37.
Second.
We have a first, we got a second. Any other discussion? Anybody? Okay. All right, those will move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? It's 5-0.
Thank you very much.
All right. Ordinance 2025-743. Ms. Ballou.
Yes, Mr. President, this is an ordinance of the City of Williston, Florida, amending the City of Williston Code of Ordinances as amended, providing for amending Chapter 40, Article 5 regarding the city's gas system, providing additional definitions, providing requirements and exemptions for residential developments to provide natural gas, providing requirements for gas turn-on and proper use of equipment, providing changes to billing and rate structure, providing for rate stabilization fund and hedging of supply, providing for standby mode, providing severability, providing for incorporation in the City Code of Ordinances, and providing an effective date.
Okay. All right. Do we have any discussions? Ms. Barber?
Lots of discussions. These are the changes that we've talked about regarding the gas update on the ordinance. If you look through your packet, you'll see the documents have changed by underlining that which is new and crossing out that which has been changed. There's been some substantial changes. One of the things that Kirsten helped us with, and we've done a lot better in this version, is we've separated a lot of definitions, excluding personal use family homes, a developer, and a building contractor, which has been majorly needed in developing some of the homes in Williston and some of the developments in Williston. We've had a lot of arguments as to what are single builds to what are multiple builds, and these levels are put in here now for everyone to clearly see. We've also increased the amount that a developer has to do from 90% to 95%. That's on page 81 in your packet, page 5 of the document. We've gone through and we have
You want questions as you go, or you're going to say the whole thing and then you have questions?
Why don't you do that? You ask any questions that you have.
Whichever you want to do.
Let's let him read.
That's what I'm asking. My first question was...
Whichever you'd prefer.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to go through it
Go ahead.
in order.
Then
All right, so page 82, you'll see all of that section was struck because on page 83, we got more into language of the developer's agreement. That had never been codified before. It's going to be codified here if you choose to in gas, and our goal is to do that in power, water, sewer, and the other ones in the future as well. This clearly lays out responsibilities, clearly lays out the contracts that we come up with, and in here gives them very clearly what the expectation from the city would be, which to, I'm sure, our attorney's consternation is something that would be nice if we didn't have to explain it each time when it's in Muni Code. If you go to page 9, page 85 altogether in the whole packet, it talks about individual premises. And on individual premises, you'll see that it really defines that better. We, again, label the types of appliances that are acceptable for gas development, the range stove, the furnace, the dryer, and so on and so forth. Lays out more information in page 86 on authorities to turn on gases and what meter tampering is more definitively. You go down to section 40-178. We've had a lot of issues with plumbers coming in and causing damage or tampering and creating issues, and then the customer, of course, the citizen, coming back and saying, well, I didn't do it. So it clearly defines that if it's your home and you've hired the plumber, in a sense, you have to take responsibility for what your plumber has done. On 40-179, we very clearly talk about no customer is permitted, and it continues on 87, to have concrete or a permanent fixture over or within 24 inches of the city-installed gas meter. That is tampering. It is actually tampering defined as the Public Service Commission in an emergency. Many times, the part that has the most leaks is what comes in contact with the ground. Concrete, of course, absorbs moisture, which rots that metal point, which we have a lot of serious problems with. And then what it is we have one of our workers standing there with a concrete saw, 2 more with fire extinguishers, and another one with a hose, because you have an active leak and you have to cut concrete, and that's the only way to make the repair. So they need to understand that there is a consequence to that. So we labeled that as tampering. You go to page 88. It redefines certain elements of the rate schedule dealing with large industrial customers. We are not changing the rates for those customers, but we're better defining it. Then the exciting part, which we've talked about and presented many months ago to you all on page 89, talks about our rate stabilization fund. This again is a sort of a prepayment. When there's spikes in the market, we're able to come to you as the council and through resolution say we have $200,000 in the gas rate stabilization fund, and we would like to basically keep everybody on what their average bill would be, and that will cost us this month $30,000. And you would come in and say, yes, you're going to charge them their normal rate, and we're going to keep them at that, and what they've prepaid for those expected increase and jumps in the market, we will mitigate that because they've kind of prepaid that. It solves the problem of low income and those that are on set incomes. Then it also allows for reserves, which Stephen, the city manager, and I'm sure the attorney really like, and some of you would really like, and that is when we build that fund up, if there isn't spikes in the market, instead of coming to you and asking for loans and things of that nature to buy essential equipment that needs to be replaced, we would then in turn use that for capital, and it can only be capital that's used for gas that was raised by gas revenue. So, purchasing essential materials, and making upgrades to lines or fixing and repairing things at gate stations, that's what the capital improvement funds would be used for on things that are already planned out. On section 40-186, you have hedging of the natural gas supply. Again, Katie Hall came in, made a presentation. You, the council, said, look, we understand that this has to be a call once we tell you there's something that you can lock in. There's only probably between 6 and 8 hours to make that call. There's certainly not 2 weeks to get something on the schedule to present it to you all, to get it signed, and then to turn around. The deals are gone by then. So we put some limits in there. We put some safeguards in there. It would be at the city manager's discretion, but it would have months of time for proposed transaction dates and how long they could lock it in and percentages that they could do that on. So, for example, only 75% of our market share could be locked in at a year. So let's say they come to us and say, you can hedge at $1.50. We'd be like, wow, that's incredible. I mean, that's the lowest anybody pays in the United States right now for gas by almost probably 80 cents. Let's lock that in. She could lock that in at 75% of our portfolio, but the limit to that would be up to 12 months. If she wanted to do it longer, 13 to 24 months, it would only be at 50%, and at 25% from month 25 into the third year. So there are limits and caps on what we could do. Clearwater did this very successfully 2 years ago when we had our big jump that June 2 years ago when it went up to $9 a decatherm. They locked it in at, I believe, somewhere around $1.80. So they were just crushing it. The downside is that when you have a market that increases and it scares you, sometimes you purchase in at, let's say, $3, and there are many systems that did that, and now they're paying $3 versus paying the 2-something that right now we're currently paying. So there is a risk to that. But it clearly lays out what the parameters are, and basically what you guys had stated that you were comfortable with is what the language was drafted at that FGU and the city attorney have put down here. Last section in the gas ordinance is section 40-187. This is standby mode for residential and commercial metering. And what this does is it says that there's going to be a base rate, the lowest base rate of $25 that will be given to any commercial or residential customer that over 12 months of usage, taking that into what their average monthly usage is, if it's 500 or below of BTUs, that they would not pay the commercial or the higher residential rate outside city limits. It equalizes the playing field. So this would be for businesses that are maybe accounting firms or real estate officers that have small 1-2 appliances. They're not really selling or marketing any product. They're not having any commercial viability to their gas usage. It's more on the par of a residential unit. And so what this does, it allows them to have that base rate that makes sense for them to continue using gas. So that's standby mode. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
One thing before we move forward, I just wanted to point out that if you look on page 89 of your whole packet, page 13, you'll see the rate and fee schedule, and then that's empty. That language will read that the rate and fee schedule shall be set by resolution. It's referenced in the title, it just didn't make it into the body of the ordinance. We're making some last minute edits, so I just wanted to let you all know that change will be there.
And that rate schedule starts on page 91. Other than the standby mode, there were no changes made to that. This is a continuation of exactly the rate schedule that we've had, and it takes into effect CPI with no increases other than that.
All right. Anybody got any questions?
Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Barber.
Yes, sir.
The one thing that keeps coming to mind, because I'm always looking for the safety of things, is the rate stabilization fund. Say you don't need anything, and that fund, is there a cap on that fund?
No, sir, you wouldn't have a cap on it unless the council wanted to put a cap in it, and I would recommend you're always going to have capital needs. So if the money's there, we would make an upgrade. For example, in gas, let's say that you had an overfunding of the rate stabilization fund. You would say, where could we expand the gas line to put more customers on? Where is gas not offered? And there's many neighborhoods in Williston it's not offered. And most of the time we tell them, although you would like gas, the reason why we can't give it to you is because we don't have the funds to expand the line to your area. So that would be an equalizer. At the same time of investing in your system, you're also bringing on more customers, which actually the larger the customer base you have makes it easier on each ratepayer. So the bigger customer count you have, the cheaper it is for everybody, because you still have the same fixed costs. You have the same operations and maintenance. Same thing with power. We have about 1,900 power meters. We have about 1,700 water meters. That burden is split. But in gas, we only have about 800. So fewer residents are sharing that burden of that same fixed cost. So you take your capital and you would expand it to areas. Gas is also part of our storm hazard mitigation plan, in regards to the more gas that you give to residents in the city of Williston to put generators on, to be able to cook on, and to be able to heat water on, which doesn't stop during a storm, means that you have less people who are desperate when we can't give them power. So.
Okay, who's got a question? Ms. Meredith?
I just have a quick question about the definitions. Will these same definitions transfer exactly when you do the other utilities, when you update them?
Yes, we're hoping this year to give you all the other ordinances, update these sections, make the language identical. I can't speak for Kirsten, but I believe all of these definitions came straight from Florida statute. So we just wanted to be in parity with Florida statute, so that when they go across the state, Williston is the same as what the Florida Building Code would be in any kind of standard. I think that's correct.
They're basically verbatim from the statute.
Perfect. Thank
you. Okay. Anybody else? Good question.
I lost one of my questions. I can't find it again. I should have asked them as I went. Is that where it says now that you have to have 4 instead of 3?
No, there's no exception now. If you build a house in the city of Williston, you either buy out or you put gas in. We eliminated the 3 house, and the reason why we did that was because we had companies come in, and they would build 2, and then for $120, they would go open a corporation. They still have their builder's license, and they would go build another 2 houses under that fictitious company. Then they would build 2 there, go file another $120 and open a corporation, and they were skirting the intent of it. So now we're just going to say, if you don't want gas on your commercial or residential property, there's a formula in here you buy out, because you're injuring the city as a whole. It's sort of like an impact fee.
I know, but who made that decision that we were going to do that?
It's just updates that we were encouraged to do by, this was developed by the city attorney, by the staff, by Florida Gas Utility. These were things that we looked at that were consistently problems, and we addressed those issues.
So how much does it cost somebody to have to pay for the gas? Number one,
there's no cost. There's no cost to the meter. There's no cost up to 75 feet of the install in the line. There's no tapping fee on gas. So
it's just
and there's limits to if they're so far away, and if they're so far away, residential is a standard. Actually, it's done by how many houses you're building. So if you build 25 houses, you have to go up to a mile because you're building a development. But if you're building less than 10 houses, it's only 400 feet. So if you're within 400 feet, we'll run the line to you. If not, then you're exempt anyways. So there's actually footage exemptions there. It's not someone who's 2 miles away from the gas line, they got to pay a fine. It has to be feasible for them to connect to gas.
I mean, that works fine if it's a developer, but what if it's an individual person?
We address that with the lower amount. Like I said, it's only 400 feet. We'll run gas 400 feet, and it's not expensive.
I mean, even if they don't want it. If
they don't want it, they can buy out. And the formula is not
much?
expensive. It comes to their usage.
Give me an example.
Okay, it comes to their usage, and it comes to 5 years of revenue on that. So it's very insignificant. You got to understand, gas bills on average for people are maybe $20-some a month.
Mine's not $20-something a month.
Well, because you have a lot of other things connected to it.
I do. I have four things connected to it. But how? If you're going to figure it over 5 years worth of usage, whose usage?
It would be their usage. So you look at their building plan, you take the appliances that they would need, and you would take average consumption on state averages.
Pretty simple.
Why are we doing it?
Well, because
who
again,
made the decision we wanted to do it?
Well, I didn't say anybody.
That's what I'm
Again, the
asking.
ordinance changes are based on issues that we've consistently had. The issue we consistently have is you have folks coming in and want to build cheap houses and don't want to put the investment in, and they're skirting around it.
Yeah.
And that is the reason why I addressed it. And the buyout is very comparable to any other system. Everything that we do in ordinances for gas, we clear through FGU, and we take a survey of what other systems are doing. Leesburg does this and has things to go out on. Stark is developing this. Lake City has this. There's many systems that have this in place.
If I may just briefly, Mr. President, you all are a member of FGU. Not everyone is a member of FGU. You get certain services from that membership with FGU. One of those services is that FGU does reach out to you and say, hey, this is a trend that we see a lot of municipalities either really needing or starting to use, and it's been beneficial, and they help. So I believe that originally the idea came from FGU as a consultant and an advisor on
Matter
the
of fact,
gas
they drafted
system.
this section.
Well, like I said, I haven't got any worry about a developer, a big developer.
Sure.
I'm talking about an individual person. If Meredith decided to build a new house tomorrow, and she doesn't want gas appliances, how much is she going to have to pay not to have gas appliances?
Sure, and I understand that, and I can't give you that exact number because it would be depending on the footprint of the house. If the house was smaller,
Make me a guess.
The amount, I can't give you a guess.
No,
There's a
it's
specific
purely
formula in the
hypothetical.
ordinance.
Yeah. Well, it's not hypothetical when you're coming to apply for a building
It's
permit.
hypothetical because there's no parameters for the question to answer.
Let's say it's a 2,000 square foot house.
Now
We
you're
can
getting
set
some
parameters. It's
parameters.
easy enough to do.
So how we figure out the formula is we look at a set of plans, what they call their peak BTUs, and we address the formulas based on the peak BTUs. So I cannot do the formula for a fictitional house. I would have to look at a set of plans. If you're asking for a cost average between the first read and if you'd be willing to the second read, I could reach out to FGU and we could get what that projection is. I remind you that this is also to encourage people to put in gas. We have a rebate program as well.
I mean,
That
I believe in
rebate
gas,
program
don't get me
says-
wrong. I've got 5 gas appliances.
Well,
in my
right. So
house.
we have a rebate program as well in here. That rebate program says that if you have an electric stove and you upgrade it to a gas stove, even if you're a new build and you say, we're putting in a gas stove, we take the model that's produced as an electric and the one that's produced as gas, and the difference in cost, the city will actually pay you because there is a storm hazard mitigation plan across the state to get as many homes on natural gas as possible because, again, this has to do with emergency procedures. So you want to encourage that, and you do that through your ordinances, and this is one of the tools that systems are doing that. They don't have to pay the buyout. They can get gas. There's no cost to those services. No tap fees, no meter fee, up to 75 foot onto their property for free. So it's not like water where you have a tapping fee and you have to pay for your meter. It's not like electric where you have tapping fees and you have to pay for your meter. Those things are excluded in the gas industry, particularly for these reasons.
Okay, so between first reading and second reading, make me a fictional house.
Sure, absolutely. I'll do a couple of different sizes.
And just give me an estimate. I mean, is it $200? Is it $2,000? That's what I just want to know.
Sure, I can do
Because
that.
it's going to be added to the price of somebody's house they got to build.
Absolutely.
And like I said, a developer, he's going to make money. He's going to get it back. But an individual will not. It's going to
A
just
developer's
get it back
not
by the
going to get it
savings.
back because
He'll
the fine is
he'll add it to the price of the house.
no. There's no fine because he's going to put in gas. The developer's going to put in gas. That's the whole spirit of it. It's to encourage them and almost
I
make it
realize that.
counterproductive to not build a development with gas.
I
So
realize
they
that.
wouldn't pass on any cost because there is no cost to upgrade. And a house that's built with gas has on average between 8 and 11% higher sale price than a house that does not have gas. So there's actually a financial benefit to a home that has gas.
The buyout to Williston Towns of Williston, or whatever you call it, I guarantee they're going to pass that money along to the people who buy.
Okay, but that's a totally different story, Councilmember Jones, because
It amounts to
they
the same
did not
thing.
have in existence any townhome footprint that had ever been built for their company that contained gas. Otherwise, they actually even still considered re-engineering to get out of the fine to put gas into the structures. So, I mean, that's the whole spirit of it, is to encourage people
I
in
know
the
that.
right direction.
I know what the encouragement is, but they're going to pass it along. And I just want to know. And I'm more worried about the individual than I am the developer, which is, I've said 3 times. On page 87.
Page 87.
Actually, on page 81. Let's go to 81 first.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is where I was going to ask the first question, where it talks about the developer that's insured at the very bottom shall ensure that not less than 95%. We changed it from 90 to 95.
That's correct.
So why did we do that, and who made that decision?
That was
Again,
a recommendation from FGO.
Yeah. And by the way, the development that we did have come in, they did 100%.
Oh yeah, if you're going to do it, I'm sure they will do
That's
it.
the only reason why I'm increasing it.
Yeah.
I will say, and Donald, please disagree with me if you think that I'm wrong, but I think that it would be very fair to say that when when we said, hey, give us, you have these ideas, let us know what that would look like in an ordinance, and they sent that over. This is a very walked back version of what FGU suggested that we do. It's absolutely walked back.
All right, on page 87, where we went, where we're actually helping them, the last line of the second paragraph, such work shall be performed by the city personnel in normal time and material charges shall apply plus 25%. Is that normal?
That's the way we've done it administratively. That's how we do the water leaks. If a contractor comes in and breaks a line, we submit an invoice to them. We don't just charge the FEMA rates now. There's administrative time. There's boil water testing. So all those administrative costs that you can't capture, we've assigned a percentage
That's
to it.
the other 25%.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And we learned that from Fruitland Park, Leesburg, the villages. They've had people that have come in and done negative things, and the only way that you prevent them from doing those is that there has to be some sort of cost prohibitive to doing that.
Yeah. And on page 89, these were just things, as I was reading it at home, where it has, I know it says maximum hedging quantities. I guess that covers, at home, I was thinking it needed to say up to 75%. But since it says maximum, I think that would,
Correct.
that would be serve the same purpose.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not locked in. I mean, she could do 3 years and do it at 10%.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
good.
but it's just up to. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, and on page 90, on the standby rate, I'm thrilled at that. I've dealt with 2 or 3 commercial businesses that have very little usage, and they're paying that $155, as you're aware, instead of a lower residential base rate. My question is, how did we come up, and I'm sure it may again be a recommendation, how did we come up as the 500 as the cutoff?
Because we looked at the list of people, the entire customer list.
Our individual list.
Our individual list that was for our system, and we looked at what they did and what type of industries they were in, and whether or not we had to set a standard somewhere.
Yeah.
And this exempted over 60% at 500 of all commercial clients in the entire city. If we would have gone much higher than that, we would have basically, then there was no point of even having a commercial rate.
Yeah, you'd have just picked
Correct.
everybody up.
Right.
Okay.
And the ones that above this, I mean, there was like 3 or 4 that were 580 was the next one after the one 493, and then after that it started jumping up by the hundreds, every single one, to where 5 down it was like 1,000 plus.
Okay.
So we had to come up with some sort of cutoff, and as we looked through the list and we examined what they did, we tried to understand what it is that they were pursuing as far as as far as usage, and that's how we did
What
that.
they were using it for. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you
Yes.
for clarifications.
Any other questions, council? Anybody got any questions? All right. So at this time, just do a motion, Miss Baloo.
You would do a motion for approval on first reading
Okay.
or denial.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion on first reading.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2025-743.
Got a first? Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a first, got a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
All right, it's 4-1.
Thank you.
All right. H, ordinance 2025-744. Ms. Blue?
Yes, Mr. President, this is an ordinance of the City of Williston, Florida, amending the City of Williston Code of Ordinances as amended, providing for amending Chapter 6 regarding alcoholic beverages to amend the definition of open container in accordance with Florida law, to add penalties for violations, and to allow on-premises licensed vendors in a designated event zone to sell alcohol for consumption off-premises during special events in a designated event zone subject to approval by the City Council, providing severability, providing for incorporation in the City Code of Ordinances, and providing an effective date.
All right.
So,
Ms. Baloo and Ms. Jones.
Laura, I don't know if you want to start and you want me to fill in, or if you would like me to start.
I could just remind the council the backgrounds. A few months ago, you had an event coordinator come and ask if this was something you would be interested in, and you asked him to work with us to create an ordinance. So that is what Kirsten has done beautifully. This is just to sell alcohol during events in event zones, so it's not like a go-all for every park. You know, you can't just go to any park and have an event and sell alcohol. This is for special, and it has to be approved with the permit. So it's something you're going to know ahead of time. They're not going to be selling alcohol, you know, without our knowledge ahead of time. So it's mostly just beer and wine. I don't think that we have any liquor in here. Kirsten can double check, but it's just beer and wine.
Okay. Ms. Baloo?
So the Laura did a great job sort of telling you sort of how we got here. A couple of things that I really, really want to emphasize, because I'm sure that everyone has different experiences with different sort of versions of this. So what this is not like is, if you've ever been to Celebration Point in Gainesville, this is not like that. In Celebration Point, they have a special district where you can just sort of walk around with alcohol from any of those restaurants anytime, or any of those vendors. This is not like that. This is a lot more control for you all than that. It's during specific times, on specific days, pursuant to applications. I don't recall, and I will look through it as you all discuss. I think that we just say alcoholic beverages, which I believe would cover liquor and beer and wine.
That's the way I read it too.
But that would be a pretty easy fix for me to amend that if that's our preference. But I think that the way that it's written now, I'm sorry.
If you could repeat the last part.
I apologize. So the way that it's written right now, we just have it listed as alcoholic beverages. I don't think that we have it limited to beer and wine, but that would be a very easy fix for me to do.
You turn your mic on, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I would like to hear from Chief Rolls.
Me too.
Please,
I have a
Chief
question.
Rolls.
Can I go first?
Sure.
So, with this ordinance, the way that it's written, even when you decide to change it, what type of liability will the city have allowing alcohol to be sold at special events?
So my standard answer is there's always liability associated with anything you do or do not do. There is always liability and an increased rate, potential liability when you deal with alcoholic beverages. That's the nature of an alcoholic beverage. It's the nature of fireworks. It's the nature of wild animals. There are some things that just come at a certain higher risk. What I will say is that one of the reasons why we crafted it the way that we did is to limit that liability. And the reason for that is it really places the onus on the event coordinator to provide us with insurance that we're comfortable with, to provide us with as an additional insured on the insurance, because it goes through you for a permitting process rather than sort of being a willy-nilly anytime you want, any place you feel. You all have control through the permitting process to limit that liability depending on the event. If it's an event that's an hour long, then that will probably need less insurance than an event that's planned to go for 16 hours or something. So it really sort of puts it within you all's control what you're comfortable with liability-wise.
So the insurance is going to cover the city as well in the event that somebody gets a ticket after being at the event and then sues?
You could require them to provide the city as an additional insured on the insurance. Absolutely, that's within your power. If the question is, will that insurance protect the city from a claim if someone attends this event, drinks, and then gets a DUI?
Or runs over somebody.
That's pretty removed. I'm not 100% certain on that specific situation, and I think that the answer would depend upon the kind of insurance that's provided.
Okay.
Police Chief Rolls.
I can probably help answer that question because I've seen an event where someone has been at an event and got intoxicated and drove and got into a car crash, and they sued the vendor who was holding the event. And they won. And they won a lot of money. I'm not against it, but I would have liked to have been consulted about this before we drew this up, because I have some concerns. All of our parks are labeled no alcohol beverages, so I would have liked to have a little bit of an input into this before
And this doesn't even address the park ordinance.
It doesn't. So I have concerns. So I would like to maybe round table it where me and Laura and Kristen can sit down and talk about it and come up with a better plan.
This is the park ordinance, and it does talk about consumption of alcohol and when you can and cannot do it. This is the park ordinance.
This is just one section of the park ordinance.
This is the park ordinance. If you read down, the fact that you can't drink at the park is in there. This is for special events only.
But the special events are at the parks. Correct?
Yeah, this is the park ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the park ordinance says you can't have alcohol in the park.
Yeah, and I don't see that in here anywhere.
So it's on page 103. I apologize. It's on page 103.
And you just crossed it off. Is that what you did?
Nope. These are the language that we have below is essentially, notwithstanding any of the above, you all can look at permits regarding X, Y, and Z. So we didn't make any changes to the prohibition. The section that we added is crafted such that you all have the ability to review applications for events, and if that causes a conflict, then your approval of the application will prevail. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Joel Penny. My question is, isn't there ordinance of selling beer or alcohol 500 feet between a church in Cedra and
300 feet.
I thought it was
300.
300.
Yeah, but how can that be? How could that even allow that to even go through? Because I mean, there's a church right there. There's a church right here. I mean, there's a daycare right there. There's a daycare down there. How that could it even be possible to even happens in any of the parks? That's my question.
So nothing in the ordinance, the way that it's written, is violative of Florida statute or that requirement regarding serving alcohol within certain limits. What this does is this allows you to review applications. So if someone came in and they said, I want an application to have an event at the middle school and I want to serve liquor, you all can say, under our ordinances, that's not really what we're looking at. So this is not a particular. I'm sorry. It looks like I'm being flagged down.
Okay, hang on.
Can she finish?
I don't remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
Mr. Barber.
What they're referring to is if you look at page 103, down at the bottom it's C. Parks, similar areas. This is your ordinance. It's how it currently stands. It is unlawful for any person to consume or have his possession any alcoholic beverage in a publicly owned park and recreation area. It hasn't changed a bit. You go to page 104, all that was done was a section was added for special permits. And if you read down in it, to Chief's concern, I was just pointing out to him, number 2, under subsection B, security and incident plans are approved by the chief of police. So the permit can't be granted until he's on board. States it right there in the ordinance change that they're doing under 6.7 special permits. So if chief were to say, I wouldn't approve this, then the permit can't go forward.
And can't we, you can limit to 2 beers or 3 beers. I've been to events to where they have the isolated areas for people to drink. And they're controlled right into there. So, police chief?
My question would be, who's going to control it, and who are we going to depend on to control it? Are you going to depend on the vendor to control it, or who's going to control that? I mean, I'm not totally against it. I just think that there's some steps that we need to put in place before we say, yes, we're going to open up our family parks to allow people to drink alcohol until they're drunk or pass out and we've got children running around. I mean, just because you have a special event at the park don't mean the park is closed to the public. The general public can still come there and utilize that park. So I just think there's things we need to think about before we make a vote on this and say, yes, we're going to do this.
Yes, Martin.
Even on special events, the parks are still open to the public. Is it not? The public can still go into the park.
No, you don't reserve the whole park.
You don't reserve it. You can't stop the public from going in the park.
Unless it's
Even if
paid,
you have a special
unless there's
event.
paid admission, which is,
Yeah.
I can only think of one place.
Mhm.
That would be the Horseman's Park. You could do that.
Yeah. Even if we have events at Heritage Park and it's reserved, the public can still walk up there or drive in there anytime they want.
Yeah, there's no control point there.
There's no control. So that's my concern.
My question would be, can we define in some place the amount of insurance that each vendor has to have, so that it's not the permit department having to decide that each time?
So this would come before the council. So all the event permits would come before the council. So your permit decision, or your permit department would not be making those decisions. But we can absolutely, I can put a minimum insurance provision in there if we'd prefer. Absolutely.
And I feel like, 2 cents here for what it's worth, that if it goes past, a certain number of hours, or certainly into hours where it starts to get dark, that insurance needs to be incredibly high. It says in here to midnight, but I don't know how I feel about.
No, the noise ordinance is 10, and the park closes at dusk.
Right, yeah. So anyway, just some clarity and
Yeah.
Let's stay open.
Mr. Penny?
So example, like just probably about 2 days ago, there was a person walking around the park and there's no officers around or anything. And there was a guy like peeing out in the open. I don't want to see that at the park.
Which park was it?
Call a cop.
John Henry Park.
Yeah.
And I did call the cops
Good.
and no one showed. Yep. But the question is y'all going to allow alcohol and liquor and stuff like that at our parks and have pedophiles or have people come into where the kids are? I don't think so. Are y'all going to allow that?
Well,
I will just reiterate that anyone who's a registered sex offender is not permitted near a public park.
Yeah, they're not allowed where children are.
You can go after.
Sell alcohol.
So are we?
Then you can go.
Are we adding an extra step in the special event permit because council, last I checked, don't approve of special event permits?
This kind of special event permit, yes.
So we'll be adding a new step.
In page 104, an application for a special event permit under this section shall be considered via resolution of the city council.
Okay, Deborah?
Okay, I got 5 or 6 things that I'm worried about. I know, don't laugh. I tried to start early, y'all wouldn't let me. I was being nice to let everybody else talk first for a change. On page 104, where it talks about, I want to read this. It talks about licensed vendors on premises. Licensed vendors are allowed to sell alcohol for consumption anywhere in the event zone. Then it goes on to talk about non-participating licensed vendors in the event zone that can only sell alcohol for consumption on premises during the event. That's very confusing to me.
So in the event, I really wanted us to keep sort of in mind that right now we have this sort of current figure that we have as our downtown district that may change. So we want to make sure that we're making your ordinance comprehensive enough so that depending upon the changes to your city in the future, you have control over things. So let's say in the event that's very specific to if there is a licensed vendor under this permit, then they can sell anywhere in whatever zone is designated for that permit. Okay, so let's say it's a 2-block radius. If there was a 2-block radius inside that zone and someone decided that they were not going to be a participating vendor, so they didn't put in with the permit application, but they are a licensed vendor, so they're not participating in the event, but they are a licensed vendor already allowed to sell alcohol. They can sell alcohol on their premises still. This doesn't prohibit them from, if they're already,
if they're not in the event zone,
if they're if they're in the event zone. So what it's saying is, yes, if it includes a bar, the bar is still allowed to sell alcohol, but they can only sell alcohol on their own premises. That's what it means by non-participating licensed vendors can only sell alcohol for consumption on premises during the event. So it's not a free-for-all for anyone
well, it was
who
the
has
non-participating licensed vendors
right.
that
non-participating in the event.
The other thing that I have an issue with is it talks, and I can't find the spot, it talks about people needing permission on private property. I don't think we need to get into telling people what they can do on private property. And you'll have to help me find that spot, but I didn't like it a bit when I got there. Number one, I don't like any of it. There's maybe 1.5 parks I would consider doing this at. I would never consider doing it at John Henry.
Can I speak for a second?
No, I'm still in the middle of a sentence. Said you can. I would never consider doing it at John Henry. I would never consider doing it at Heritage Park. Maybe the Fireman's Park. Maybe the Horseman's Park, because they're controlled a little better. But no, I can't think of another park that I would want this to happen in. Wow. And even as Mike has said, I've been to events where they had an event tent that you could buy liquor, but you had to stay in the tent. You couldn't wander up and down the park. You
and
just stayed in the tent.
That's how I see that this works, is they have to stay in that zone.
But
so like you said,
not
if
the
it's
whole
a
park
tent,
be in the zone, just this tent.
Right.
In the park.
Right.
And only
that's
certain
kind of how
parks.
I've read it. You done? Let's see
I
if
don't
Laura
know if I'm done. Go ahead.
We'll come back to you. Miss Jones? Miss Jones?
Do you want to turn?
Oh, yes, thank you. So I think that we're getting a little bit off track. The only 2 parks, if you look at the maps that are attached, are Fireman's Park and Heritage Park.
I couldn't tell a thing by looking at the maps.
It's
nothing, because they're not good in our packet. The first map, you can't tell a thing by it.
So it says the downtown district as described in figure below, which is Heritage Park and Fireman's Park. It doesn't include John Henry or any other parks. President Cox is correct, where the way that this is really going to go in the end with your special exception permits that you guys are going to review is that you're going to have a tent where you're going to be drinking beer, and you guys can tell them where you want the tent to be. The reason that the whole thing is highlighted for Heritage Park is because that's how that whole event will go. But as Joby pointed out, we have to stay 300 feet from the churches and the schools, so there's a very small area here where they can have that beer tent. They cannot leave and walk around the park with beer or wine. It has to stay in that event area, just like it would have to stay at Fireman's Park. They couldn't walk up and down the street. They could have a baby shower and have some wine, and that's really the intention of this. And that's why it was asked to bring the ordinance. It's not to have big parties up and down the street. It's going to be very regulated by you, and that's why Kirsten put it in there, that you guys have to say exactly what specifications that you want when they put in these events.
May I point out, at the last event that we had in Heritage Park, I had a man come up to me and said, is there any chance that we might change the ordinance that says you can't have beer or wine here? And he said he had a tent. He was willing to keep it controlled from minors, no minors let in, but he felt like it would be a good business gesture, obviously, for him to be able to sell beer. And I said, I don't think that's going to happen, mister. But you could make me wrong.
So what happens when y'all have an event and someone gets kind of like really wasted? And I'm not saying nothing bad about the city, but some of the sidewalks is kind of a little uneven, or there's some parts.
Or worried about them walking in the road.
Yeah. What happens if they fall and like bust their knee open or break a knee? I mean, who's reliable for that?
But
would it be the city?
Liability insurance.
That's what
Yeah, can't someone go after the property owner and the liability people?
They will.
Yes,
they absolutely will.
they can. So the insurance is no good.
But we can, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, we can tell them after X amount.
You can tell whoever you want. They're going to sue whoever you want.
Well, they're going to do it if you look at somebody wrong. They will sue you. But that's not the issue.
I mean, why would we want to put ourselves in a situation where we can be sued? That's what I'm saying.
We're already can be sued, Joe.
Okay.
I'm just pointing out. Doesn't matter if he's been drinking or not. We want him to be drinking because that evidence will come out and his suit will get lost. We can be sued at any time.
Right.
It's just
Fully
a choice.
agree, Mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been over to Palatka to one of their Blue Crab or one of their festivals, and they have a tent. You can go in, you can buy a beer, you sit down. They have it all kind of fenced in. You got an entrance in, entrance out, and that's how they control it. They got to come to one spot, and they
that's what
drink
this
it in
gentleman
that,
asked me, and I said, no way.
and they
But
drink it in the
I
tent.
could be wrong.
That's what I told him too.
Oh, he came to you too, huh?
Okay, so I'll say it
So they
again.
went over our heads.
I'm not against it. I have a lot of questions. You're talking about what other people have and how they set their tents up, but we're not talking that here. We need to know, we need to have a clear outline of what we mean by we're saying you can have a tent where you can sell alcohol. Does it have to be a screened-in tent? Does it have to be fenced in? Is there going to be somebody standing there to make sure somebody don't walk out it? I've been to events where they have tents you sell alcohol, and I watch people walk right out of it. Get the alcohol, walk right out, and go wherever they want to go. And there's nobody there to control them. There's nobody there saying, hey, you've had 4 drinks, and that's it. You're a little bit too intoxicated. Nope, they keep selling them. They keep getting them. They keep walking out. So my concern from the security point of it is my people that are gonna, if it's required for them to even have an officer standing there to make sure that they're not walking out of the tent, which I'm not interested in doing because we're not security police. So I think before we do this, we need to have a clear guideline as to, if we're going to do this, what is required and who's required to do what, besides me, the police department, running over and trying to stop some intoxicated guy who's not listening to the server saying you can't walk out of the tent. So I think if we're going to go down this road, we just need to have clear guidelines of what we're going to allow and how it's going to be
If
enforced.
possible, I'll sit on that committee with you.
Yeah.
To discuss. Ms. Jones, you have anything else? I'm sorry.
No, I mean, if this isn't something that we want to do, I'd rather not have a committee and pay like another $600 to advertise this. I was directed to do it by city council. And so, I mean, I didn't write it. Kirsten wrote it. So I'm obviously she was directed to do it. This really doesn't have, I don't have a dog in the fight.
This city council asked you to write this ordinance?
Yeah, you guys asked us to
I
write
don't
the
remember
ordinance.
that at all. I remember him coming in here,
Yeah.
but I don't remember us telling you to write an ordinance so he could do it.
I believe that the instruction came from Terry.
Yeah,
Oh,
didn't come
maybe it
from
was
us.
Terry. Oh, I apologize. But somebody asked Kirsten.
And he's gone, right?
He can't defend himself, so you see how smart that is of me.
I've got a list of other things that Terry did if you want them. Anytime I'm in trouble, if Terry did it.
So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, like, if you guys are interested in doing something like this so that we can have baby showers at the park downtown and that we can have, like, when we had our groundbreaking, we could have had a little bit of champagne. If you're interested in that, I could have a committee and we could make it very specific. If you're not interested at all, I have a lot of other ordinances that you guys are very interested in that you've directed me to write. So I guess that's the direction I'm asking for. If you're not interested, then we don't have to do it.
Yeah, I think the
I'm
question
not opposed to it, but I'm in agreement with Chief Rolls, and maybe an option would just be to table this, come back when we have a few more definitions outlined, if possible, and we could all submit our suggestions for what needs to be defined and revisit.
Great
Good
idea,
afternoon.
Meredith.
I think she's
Yes,
next.
ma'am.
Yes. I'm just thinking, I'm thinking about what has happened to me recently. But when we do the event insurance, can there be a disclaimer drawn up saying that the city will not be liable for any type of incident that occurred regarding or relating to this event? Can you do any disclaimer that the people have to sign with the application and the insurance, event insurance?
We always have provisions like that. Unfortunately, under Florida law, that doesn't mean that they can't sue you.
Yeah, right. It doesn't mean anything.
It's a fancy wording, but it doesn't really provide much protection, which
What
is
they're
why we
saying,
have.
We're glad you have that, but it doesn't make any difference.
I understand exactly what they're saying, but I'm saying is that recently I had to sign a disclaimer and it was valid. I couldn't do anything else after I signed the disclaimer. So,
Which is what I would say to anyone who came.
Yeah,
but if there's a
try it.
lawsuit, it's a sort of a different
Yeah, get yourself an attorney
situation.
and do it anyway.
Okay.
I make a motion that we table this ordinance until March, what's the next one?
18th.
18th, thank you, until March 18th, and allow a little further input from Chief of Police and council members to help define and identify the concerns.
Second.
Would you be willing to amend your motion to give us a little bit more time, because that gives me exactly 1 week to have this ready again.
Yeah.
And I will not be ready.
I will
in 1 week.
amend my motion to the council meeting following the 18th, which I don't know what it is.
First meeting of April.
First meeting of April.
Hey, I got one more thing. Heritage Park's right here, and right across the street there's a daycare. So
There's a what?
A daycare
Where?
where the kids are, Kids and Company.
Kids and Company.
So how could that even allow?
Joey, we addressed
It'll probably be
it. 300 feet from the daycare. I mean, the park is 300 feet is not as long as you think it is. It's not
right
very
across
long.
the street.
That just means I'll
So that would mean that you couldn't drink right across the street. But Heritage Park goes all the way down to 5th place. So
That's if it's a weekend event.
Children won't be there.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
well, we could
Okay.
change the ordinance that says if the daycare is closed, we can still drink in front of it.
Vote. No, just table it.
I know, but,
All right, Meredith
we
made a
need a
motion.
vote to table
Yeah,
it.
we need a motion.
please.
All right.
Okay.
So we got a motion.
And we got a second.
Who's going to motion? Second? All right, good. Motion. Any other discussion? No? You sure? Speak now for everyone, please. Okay. All right, seeing none, move to vote. All in favor of tabling meeting until the first meeting in April, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 5-0.
Feed me in a minute.
What's that?
You have to feed me in a minute.
I know, I agree.
All right. Letter I. Ordinance 2025-746. Ms. Ballou.
All right, Mr. President, this is an ordinance of the City of Williston, Florida, amending the City of Williston Code of Ordinances as amended, providing for amending Chapter 38 and creating Article 5 entitled School Speed Zone Infractions, providing for school speed zone enforcement cameras, providing for school speed zone speed enforcement program and use of speed detection systems, providing program implementation requirements, designation of school zones and enforcement, providing legislative findings, providing severability, providing for incorporation in the City Code of Ordinances, and providing an effective date. Before we begin, I did talk to the Chief of Police about this one.
You did?
Just for the record.
Oh,
so it's clear.
Thank you for that disclosure.
Didn't have a committee meeting.
You have been disclosed, Mr. Chief.
Thank you.
So this is, I'll let the chief take over, but this is the ordinance that's required in order to implement that school speed zone traffic cameras that you had that presentation on a while ago. So this is the legal element that we have to have in order for you all to incorporate that program, and I will let the chief take it away.
This step is part of getting the permission and getting it established to have the cameras in the school zones. The law requires that you have to have an ordinance. So this ordinance is not something that's brand new. I think every city or county municipality that has these cameras in had to create these ordinances. So it was easy for us because we didn't have to recreate the wheel. It's already been done. So
Happy to answer any questions, but
And the county's fully on board.
The county's fully on board.
Ooh, I didn't hear that. So you've been to a meeting and they're okay with it?
Oh, I didn't have to have the meeting. We were on the agenda,
Uh-huh.
but after they read the House bill and we talked to our attorney,
Cool.
they realized we didn't need their permission.
They didn't have a dog in the fight.
No call.
All
I
right.
make a motion that we approve ordinance 2025-744.
746. Sorry, just to
746.
clarify.
Yeah, I started to say that's why I didn't second. Yeah.
746.
Okay, we have a first, we got a second. Any other discussion? Nope. Anybody out there got anything? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
All right. Discussion with possible action. Council chambers, chairs, audience, parentheses. Public Works Supervisor Donald Barber and City Clerk Latricia Wright.
Boy, that looks more comfortable.
So this is about the update of the room. We did the council chamber chairs. We're trying to make small adjustments and improvements. After we get, if you want the chairs out here addressed, which is what we're talking about now, then we'll address the desk here and get some things back in order. But you see that chair, if Latricia, if you want to scroll up, it has all the dimensions, unless it doesn't have it on that one. I've got it on this here.
Up, not down.
It was on one of them. So.
You can pass that down if you like. It gives your dimensions at your weight. It is a vinyl material, so it goes to like a fox leather, as opposed to the fabric, which gets stained and, you know, people do things to them and, you know. Anyways, they're not as sanitary. It is about time to update the chairs but you know, it's whatever you guys want to do. I've got a cost estimate there. I will go out and get further quotes, but it's not really necessary for this amount of money. But if you guys would like, but this is the vendor. This is the one that's done a lot of the furniture in the office. They stand behind their work. They warranty their work. Again, they're the ones that sold the chairs that that all of you are sitting in. And we did check the market. This is a fairly good price. We've priced in, I believe, 60 chairs, Latricia, because we wanted enough too that if one broke or something happened, that we had some put away that would take effect. I believe with the green chairs that you have out and the white chairs, it's about like 48 chairs. So with getting the 60, the extra 12, it would make sure that they're all matching.
Is that amount of chairs with the size going to fit in the room? Is it the same size as that one?
They're slightly wider, but what we would do is we'd simply move up forward and we would add to a couple of the rows back here, and then again we would take advantage of the wall.
Along the sides?
Yes, ma'am.
And
they're more of like a church seat now than they are one of these. So
Who's going to clean them?
Well, that's the nice thing is they're leather, so a little bit of bleach and vinegar, and you wipe them down, and they're all spotless and clean.
Unless you want to do it.
Wouldn't put bleach on them.
No.
Well, I mean, you dilute it.
Disinfect it maybe, but
Yes.
not bleach.
Well, which yes, ma'am.
They will be white
Yes, ma'am.
instead of gray.
And this is something that the council had asked several years ago about getting a price on the chairs.
Well, let me tell you, when we were in the old city hall, when our council room was in the old library, that's when we bought these chairs. And they are ancient. We have definitely gotten our work, our
And like some
usefulness.
ancient things, they're still going strong.
And we'll be
They
able to
are.
sell those, the green ones?
Well, we'll do whatever you want. I mean, the suggestion from staff is that, you know, you get new things, and a lot of times we encourage there to be hand-me-downs to other 501c3s and nonprofits and people in the community and things like that. But if you guys want us to try and sell them in a lot, we'll have Danny put them up on GSA. I mean, whatever your desire is. But I would state that there's a lot of hand-me-downs recently that we got from Marion County and other agencies where they give us stuff that we can still get a lot of use out of, and it's, you know, it's kind of nice to sometimes be able to do that.
Yeah.
On the other chairs that we're talking about,
Yeah, this one.
can they come with dollies? Because I've been in, our church has had them. Everybody always grabs chairs, 2 or 3, and they drag them to the closet.
We can absolutely inquire if they come with the cart that stacks so many. I have no problem inquiring that. That would be an additional cost, but I mean,
Put these up.
in here, there's very rarely that we utilize this room for anything other than what requires audience chairs. But I mean, we could inquire on it if that's your desire.
Just make it easier for like moving around. Like say you're going to do something with the room. We utilize the room for hurricanes because this becomes one big bedroom.
That's true.
And this way here, they can stack them on the dollies and just push them out. That's how we've had them in the past.
If you guys want to do a consensus, I don't think it needs a resolution of any kind because of the amount. But if you guys want to do a consensus, and your consensus wants to be that you want us to, a little bit above this amount, see if we can get some dollies on wheels, we could do that. I mean, that's up to y'all. But
it was just a question.
Yeah, then you got to have a place to put it.
Where are we going to store the
Well,
dollies?
yeah. Well, I mean, typically even during that, we push everything against the wall. So
yeah. And the dollies are but no more wider than the base of the chairs being stacked. Just a question.
So we're just here to see whether or not you guys want to move forward with this. If you do, then we'll let the company know. They'll come in, they'll stack and put these where we want them, bring the new chairs in, set them up, and have everything. But that's up to y'all. It's just what you guys asked us to get together. So.
But I think handing them to another.
Do we have $5,500 in the budget somewhere?
Yes.
Let's do it. On the motion?
Motion or just a consensus?
Motion would be appropriate.
I move that we spend up to $5,500 for purchase of new chairs for the council room.
I second.
We have first, second, any other discussion? Anybody out there? Nope. All right. Seeing none, we will move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? It's 5-0. All right. Dun, 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 the last one for the evening. Resolution 2025-38, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, approving the signing of the contract with Performance Services for the City of Williston's Fiber ISP project services for design, engineering, finance, and construction services, and providing an effective date. Public Works Supervisor Donald Barber and Hector Samario, I hope I got that right, with Performance Services, Inc.
This is the long-awaited contract. This is the first step in what you'll see as 3 other items if this goes forward tonight for a Williston Fiber. Staff's been working very hard on this. We think that you guys asked us to be in as much speed as we could. And I think 5 months from start to finish is like a really, really good timeline. Even the other ones that presented were presenting about the same timeline. So I'm going to let Hector come up, explain it. If you guys have any questions, Hector's even going to talk about the financing, which is attached to the back of the packet that you all received in your folder. And you can ask any questions that you have on that. If you move forward with this, next meeting, the Seacoast Bank would be next on the 18th, the loan. Then there would be the agreement that we are currently writing with the Williston Crossings. We've met with them, and they have said that they would give us exclusivity, which is private property, for the entire park and be their exclusive provider for internet. And they're willing to do that and contract to do that with the term of the loan. So, I mean, that's a guaranteed at their lowest season of 200 customers all the time, and this time of year they have about 400 on their internet service. So that's a huge take rate. That's a lot of extra customers that are guaranteed that we don't ever have to worry about competition with. So you'll see that, and then you'll see once this is passed and the budget's passed for it, next meeting, 2 positions that would add the technical positions, outside hires, to do the actual installs and connect the homes after the initial connections that the contractor would do. So Hector, I'll have you come forward if you'd like.
Thank you, Donald. And good evening, Mr. President, Vice President, council members, Madam Manager, brand new manager. I'm going to be, just the last item, I'm going to try to be brief. I've got a presentation, if Latricia would like to put that up there. I'm going to cut through this quickly because it is the last item, it is late. You can move on to the next slide. I'm sorry, it should be a slide. Okay, yeah, so this is just the agreement. I had forwarded some slides. Nope, you don't have them. That's okay. I'm going to walk through there, talk through it. So just a little bit of background. You recall that you hired Lit Communities back in February of 2023 to do a full assessment of your needs, your broadband opportunities. And they did a great study. They looked at demographics, they looked at needs, they looked at existing service providers. They did a full spectrum of assessments. And January of last year, a little more than a year ago, they came back with a very strong recommendation that the city be the owner-operator of your own broadband, your own ISP provider. And one of the key things, 2 key things that they said, and the reason they came back with that recommendation is because, one, you already have the infrastructure, and that's a huge, huge deal, and I'll explain that in a sec. And the other reason they said is you already are a utility provider. You have the experience of being a provider, customer service, and those things mattered a great deal. Now, why that infrastructure makes a big difference to the city of Williston is we're looking at other opportunities here in Florida. We're looking at about 2,000 connections here in Williston, about 2,000 points. Looking at your price, we're looking at another city that has about 3 times as many connections. So you think, well, 3 times as many connections is going to be 3 times the cost. But no, because you've already got the infrastructure, that cost is going to be closer to 6 or 7 times more. So to do the same thing that you're doing here would be 6 or 7 times more expensive somewhere else. It's going to be a little bit larger, but they don't have the infrastructure or the experience. So that matters a great deal.
Hector, excuse me.
She found your slides.
Great, thank you.
So you can just tell me when to go to the next one, okay?
Next one. So part of your due diligence, you said, Hector, we need to do a comparison. We get that recommendation from Lit Communities, but we've got several companies coming in here that's saying that they want to be the ISP provider. You recall all of that last year. Good news is that when you've got companies doing their due diligence and they're doing the financial analysis, they're saying, hey, this is a great investment, so let's go to Williston, let's offer to do it ourselves. But you asked to do a due diligence. We did the due diligence. We looked at, what an ISP provider would look like versus what you would look like doing it. It wasn't quite apples to apples, or oranges to oranges, because of the difference in pricing. And in any case, we took as much of the common information that we had, common data. We ran some numbers. You can skip to the next slide. A lot of different things came into play. We had to assess costs, maintenance. A lot of things had to be assessed. Next slide. But when we finished, it wasn't a close comparison. Doing it in-house was far more financially beneficial to the two. It wasn't even close. So that back in August, that estimate was about, after 15 years, you would net about $5.2 million. So that was our estimate back in August. As a result of that, you issued an RFP, and you can go to the next slide. As Donald said, you issued an RFQ in September, 3 months, in early December, you awarded that to us. And here we are today, less than 6 months later, as Donald said, within 5 months, a little more than 5 months. Here we are coming back to you with the contract. Now let me add that this is possible because, one, we have a great team that I'm going to introduce here in just a second. But really, your staff, Aaron and Donald, have been so incredibly helpful in providing all the information that we needed. Tours, allowing us access to everything that we needed to have access to, has been very, very helpful. So we got this done within that less than 6 months because of the support that we had, not just from our team, but from your staff. Next step, as Donald mentioned, is the financing. You can go back one. So we're looking at financing. Once that's approved on the 18th, we're going to get right into mobilization, start ordering materials, and we're looking at being done with construction no later than October 18th.
Cool.
So pretty quick in everything that we're doing here, because we know that with any business, being first is always going to be important. So being out there is going to be important. Next slide. I do want to introduce my team. You already know me. Ron Russell, he didn't know, but I added Maestro to his title up there. He's our senior project developer. And the reason I added Maestro, because like any conductor, he has been coordinating all of this with our team, our subcontractors, working with your staff. So I'm reminded of that Seinfeld episode where there's a maestro who likes to walk around with his little conductor wand. Anyway, he has been doing an incredible job. I can't say enough about Ron and all that he's done. Mike McCann, sitting next to him, if you raise your hand, Mike. Company's been around for 26 years. Mike has been with the company for 25 years. Senior project manager. He's going to be in charge of overseeing the construction of your project. He lives here in St. Pete. If I had to choose from all of our project managers in the company, he's the guy that I would choose. He just has the wealth of experience, so we're lucky to have him. On the call, Frank Delco, who's going to be overseeing the construction. He's working in 6 counties here in Florida right now. He's on the phone. I've asked him to be there. He was sitting on the tarmac. He was going to be here. Sat on the tarmac inside of an airplane for 2 hours waiting to get for clearance for takeoff. Flight got canceled. He had to turn around. And anyway, so now he's back at home. Frank, thanks so much for being here. I know that you're listening to this, but thank you. And should any questions come up on the construction side, we're going to be pointing, looking to you to answer those questions. Next slide. The project document you have, it's got all the information that you see here, 4.66. It actually, we were below that 4.5. We were about 4.2 mil when the Williston RV Park RV Resort was added. So that added another, Donald mentioned, 450 connections, underground connections to 450 pads. That kicked it back up to 4.6 from 4.2. But it's a great investment. We ran the numbers, and it just makes sense. Happy to answer any questions. You can skip several slides. You can skip this. I just wanted to point out there's been a lot that has gone into getting this ready. Our team has looked at every single light pole, done loading analysis for every single electric pole. Picture, we have everything that we need to do this. You can skip on over to this slide here, which is just the numbers. When we ran the numbers, you saw earlier in the August, we estimated about 5.2. We're looking at 15 years at 7 point, I can't see that very well, 7.2 mils. Over 20 years, looking at about
Trisha, can you
12,
make it bigger?
12 mil? 12 mil. I should have better glasses. So the numbers are much better than we anticipated. These are all the numbers that we generated working with your staff to make sure that we captured all the costs, everything that was going to be generated as part of the project. I'm going to pause there and answer questions, and let Donald add to it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that if you look at your take rate, which is your top left corner, you have your amount for construction, and then you have your take rate. Construction, obviously to October, we had originally that at 100. We were very conservative on all the ideas of what we would take and understand what our billables and our revenues would be. But we put that to 300 because of the of the contract that will go through with Williston Crossings. But other than that, we had the take rate for all of construction at 100. We suspect that as we're constructing, we're going to get far more than that. We already have pre-registrations. I think, Aaron, around 386.
324.
Okay,
last I
24. I
checked today.
apologize. Around 324. We didn't add that in the metric. So if you go to year one with a full 12 months of operation, we only put it at 500. And then some of you may ask, well, in year 20, why do you have 1605 when there's like 1,900 electric meters? We put in anticipation of growth. So we worked with Wright Pierce a bit too and said, okay, what do we project growth to be over 20 years? And so our take rate overall, I believe, is under 60% throughout all that time. So we were very conservative. The other operators that came in and talked about it and said, well, you guys can't get above 50, you can't get above 60. We're down there too. So we weren't trying to be unrealistic with what rate of returns. We hope we return this better. I mean, we've talked about if we get financing next meeting, and we start mobilizing and getting connections, let's say by the end of construction we're at 500 or 600 customers, and that changes your revenue picture. All we're going to do is utilize that money to get more customers on, which would then allow you to pay back that loan even faster. So that's the whole point. And then I wanted to point out in the back of your packet, I gave you all hard copies, the last couple of pages is a letter, last 2 pages, is a letter from Performance Services. And you'll see on there that the financing was done through Performance Services. But they came to us, we were very good partners in the process, and they had said, we have a lot of different banks that we've been dealing with, and I was very happy that we were able to work out something with Seacoast. So what you'll see on the very last page of your packet is the initial offer, and then the second to last page on the back of that sheet is the letter from Seacoast as well, from Justin Head over there, former council member and our, the VP of the bank over there for commercial. And I just wanted to point out some things on the rate sheet, because you're going to be seeing a final offer on the 18th, hopefully. During the 10-month construction period, there will be no principal or interest at all. During then the 14-month interest-only period after that, so you have a little bit longer than 12 months after that where it's only interest. So as we're adding, as we're building, as we're establishing services, all we're doing is paying the interest. Now we can pay principal, but we are only required. And then we have 196 months after that for a total of 240. So, and then you have prepayment penalties. That was negotiated as well. If you go down to the second to last column, you only have, if you pay it back early in the third year, wouldn't that be nice? You only pay a 3%, your second year only a 2%, and then thereafter any prepayment is a 1%. So, I mean, as far as a deal goes of this magnitude, these are really, really good terms. There was quite a bit of work put into that as well, and I just want to make sure you guys had that information. That will be, again, like I said, if you move forward with this contract, will be presented in its final form on the 18th.
Perfect. Mr. Mayor, you had your hand up.
It's a rather simple question. I believe I heard that you would come take all these chairs and put them wherever we wanted them, and you would put the new chairs in. That's what I believe I heard. But this contract specifically says you will deliver them and install them, but all other furniture must be removed.
That was the last item.
Huh?
That was the last item.
Have you moved on? Yes. Because I've been waiting to ask this question for a while.
Oh, yeah. We're definitely past that.
Yeah, and the company is going to remove the old chairs and put them where we want.
Even though this thing says no. Okay. This is on the vinyl chairs.
But we're on Performance Services, which is the second resolution that Latricia sent us at home.
Is not Performance Services providing the vinyl chairs?
No, sir.
Well, I haven't said it. Fine. I'm going to go home. All right.
When we do because I've been having customers ask, and even my neighborhood, they go, "What happened to the other company?" I'm like, "Well, after the shellacking that they took in the council room, they just slowly disappeared." And I then would explain to them.
Open infra person.
Yeah, so they're still doing contracts around the state, but I believe what we got word from some credible people was that they didn't receive enough interest in it that they were willing to saturate this market at the time, that they moved on to another market. It's not to say that they won't come back at some point, but right now they're not. So Open Infra, where I live in Citron Reddick, actually, they have contracts and they're moving through there. And then what they're doing is they've already partnered with Spectrum, and then another area they've partnered with Cox. And so they've already actually pre-sold those customer subscribers to them. So they're in the middle of doing a totally different area and project. We're not aware that they've done anything or moving forward. They haven't pulled any permits. They haven't done anything in regards to that. Now, Central Florida is going to be doing some things in the area, and we're helping them along in that process. We're getting the permitting process taken care of. We're helping them with right-of-way permits, and they're actually interested in doing some things in a couple of the outskirt neighborhoods in the city of Williston. And again, as we discussed at the very beginning, there's no attempt to block anyone from the market. We want to beat people on price and service. So,
yeah, because they said, we haven't heard anything from them. They came in and put stuff in, and I said, well, we're moving along with what the city's
They
doing.
want people to pay $500-something to council.
Well, you
But
still have
if
to
you
buy 'em
remember,
out.
though, in that council meeting, when they were in here, their district manager or whatever said there would be no penalties.
well, unfortunately, that wasn't in writing, notarized,
That's
and
not true.
by a notary, legal notary in the state. But from our understanding, the people would have to buy out unless Open Infra were to say that they weren't bringing services in. So our encouragement to someone who would sign the contract would be to contact them, ask them in writing if they're going to be providing services, and if they say not, then probably it's in the customer's best interest to go out and say, please remove your equipment from our property. But I mean, other than that, I can't answer that question.
And our wires are going pole to pole.
Some are, some aren't. In the design that Performance Services did and through the engineering, there are going to be certain areas that are going to go underground. So, for example, the crossings, the reason why there's a little bit more is because we don't have power poles through there. Their power is underground. Now, we're going to utilize a lot of the conduit that they already have in existence, but there is going to have to be some development of some further conduit, so that's going to be put underground. And as we told council, as future development's done and we grow, we would be putting as much of that underground moving forward. And then same thing, like if an aerial line here on Heritage Park one day went down underground, at that time we would put in part of that cost, the cost of putting the fiber underground as well.
Aaron?
Yeah, I received a call from a lady today in Flemington, just east of us, who was questioning about Open Infra and said she had heard that they weren't coming to Williston. I told her I couldn't tell her anything official. I didn't know anything, but she had called them and they advised her it was going to cost her $2,000 to cancel her contract.
2,000, not 500. Gotcha.
Mr. Mayor?
That's what I said. Don't sign a contract.
I also called Open Infra, and I said, I have been told that you're not coming into Williston. And I was assured, and I've got the telephone number to both people, that they are surely going to come into Williston, and they expect to have the service ready to go by June. Now, they could be lying. You could be mistaken. I don't know the facts, but I have the phone number for the higher-ups in Open Infra. And I called them. I said, I just want to know. And there's been a lot of talk about this $500. If they don't perform, they're going to have a hard time collecting $500. And I don't know if anybody remembers it, but we were assured there would be no penalties.
That's right.
Right here in the
We
council.
probably have it on tape.
We have it on tape. We got it in writing. We were assured there would be no penalties. I am one of the people that signed with them. And being who I am, I insisted on giving me their phone numbers to their higher ups, not just the guys digging the ditch. And they did, and I have called them 2 or 3 times. Said, you know, he said, he gave me the reasons. I won't bore everybody with them, but he said, we are still planning to go to Williston, and we intend to have everything there by June.
And I wouldn't discount anything the mayor said. All I would say is that from the staff's perspective, we haven't received any right-of-way permits, and there's been no engineering or anything turned into any of us that I'm aware of. And as Central Florida finds out, there is a process to that. So, I mean, if they started today, I really don't know how that would be possible.
And they're coming from Melrose, I think, if I remember correctly. They have to build service from Melrose.
Right.
Question. So how are you going to go about determining which sector you start with?
The highest take rate, and that's going to be the northeast of town from northwest Maine that way, and then southeast part of town from South Main east. So we're going to take care of the northeast and the southeast because there's the highest concentration and density of customers. When you get into the southwest and the northwest, everybody's really more spread out. The lot sizes are much larger. So we were going to target on what's the best ROI or return on investment.
So it's based on the amount of people that you think that you'll be able to...
Well, you have the middle mile and the last mile that will be built and constructed, but when we talk about connecting specific customers, we're going to target large quantities of them. That's why the 2 techs will be hired. So in performance services, and Hector can answer to this more specifically, but we're paying the fiber contractor so much money to do so many connections directly to the customer, meaning they're going to come in, install the main stuff, and then they're going to go right up to the house with the NID and basically get a customer connected. And there's so many of those in the contract. Originally, I believe it was 500.
I think it's 500.
And then with the crossings being added, that number increased. Because we want them automatically connected, because when they come in, we're going to be the internet provider, and that we can guarantee we're the internet provider. But the density is going to be from here to the city limits out to 13th Street, where the old middle school is, all the northeast quadrant, and then the southeast quadrant, including the arbors on the southwest side.
Is that including county, the county section?
We're going to only provide for our current customers first in the city limits, and then the goal would be to expand beyond that. That'll give us time to do pole attachment agreements. I would love to go out to the county line, but that will require us to get pole attachments agreements with Clay Electric. We've just started negotiations with them. They have presented that they are not interested in getting into the fiber space like some of the other co-ops like Central Florida. And so we're going to negotiate being the neighbor and kind of try and go that direction. But we feel like we have a responsibility to deal with the 4 quadrants of town that we have before we expand beyond that.
What's the blue lines?
Which page are you looking at?
Page 6.
Page 6.
I believe that's the middle mile. That's the loop that feeds everybody. Everybody would feed off of that, I believe.
Off of the blue line?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Yes. That's kind of like your...
that's your backbone,
That's
basically.
basically your spinal cord, and then, all the customers would be the veins and all the nerves going off of that.
Okay.
That was helpful.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Yes,
Sure,
we're going
go
to need to
ahead.
make a motion.
Go ahead.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2025-38.
All right, got a first, got a second. Any other discussion? Any discussion from anybody? No? Anybody? No. All right.
I think we ran off all the public comment.
Okay.
That's
All
'cause
right,
it's
seeing
freezing
none,
in
we're
here.
going to move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
4-1.
4-1. Who was the one? Were you a 1?
I didn't have a chance to read it. I just got it this morning, and I was at work all day, so I didn't get a chance to read it. I can't vote on something I didn't read.
I just figured a lot of it was stuff that we've been over.
I mean, I can read it now.
We discussed it for
All right. Item 7, public participation. Okay, none. Item 8, announcements, staff.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Last week, Vice President Hines and I attended a conference in Orlando. And I just want to let everyone know that She was elected as assistant treasurer for the Florida Black Caucus of local elected officials. So, congratulations. And again, and I want to thank everyone that helped out with the parade and the ceremony for Quinyon Mitchell. Everyone did a great job, and I appreciate all the help that I received. Thank you.
Okay, any other staff? No? Mikey Miller, anything? No? Okay.
Mikey Miller. Oh boy, you got it now.
Council. Anything? No? All right.
Move we adjourn.
Ms. Ray, Mayor?
Second.
He's gone? All right.
I make a motion.
Adjournment.
to adjourn.
I'll take a motion for
I made it already.
first. Got a second?
Seconded it.
All right, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The time is now 9:10 p.m. and this meeting's adjourned.